Hello everyone, welcome to GPVWC Formula Sprint 1. This is the 2022 season and I'm so excited to be back because if 2021 was anything to go by, then this year is going to be cracking and we know it will be because it is GPVWC. There you see the venue for today. It is Imola for the, San Marino round of the championship, despite the fact Imola is not technically within the borders of the microstate, but that doesn't matter. It's round one of the Formula Sprint 1 Championship, and if you're confused by that name, this is the series that used to be Super Cup. Joining me for this first round of the championship is, first of all, the cameraman Szymon Frelik, who is the broadcast director, providing you with all of the sights and sounds that you're seeing, but also Russ McIntyre. Russ, I haven't spoken to you since, November. How are you doing?
Brilliant, thank you, Caitlin. I was just saying to you before the broadcast that every time we kept meaning to, catch up and have a chat, one of us was busy, unfortunately. But it's, it's great to be back in the booth here at GPVWC. Great to be hearing your voice again. I'm super excited. As you said, yes, we are here for the 2022 Formula Sprint 1, round one of the championship here at Imola. And as you said, a bit of a reshuffle in the GPVWC championship. In old money terms, this is what Formula Challenge has become. It's now Formula Sprint 1. There's Formula Sprint 2, there's Formula Sprint 1. It's all been shaken up, but don't let the name change take away from what we're going to see, because we've got a packed grid of drivers here for you today, a packed grid of teams, 2 races, 31 laps for the first race, and then of course the second 21 lap reverse grid race. And boy oh boy, I am so excited to be back here for GPVWC. Caitlin, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm just looking forward to a great night's worth of racing.
Absolutely, me too, and so is everyone else. We've had some predictions coming in already. There was a predictions sheet, a predictions form posted in the GPVWC Discord a few days ago to see who people think are going to be the contenders this year, and it is very evenly matched actually, looking at the provisional results. Tom Stevens is leading that with 8 votes, so 19% of the votes, and he does return after finishing 3rd in last year's championship. And Moritz Kropp and Owen McGorgy seem to be the other kind of top votes with 6 apiece. We've also got Jake Dennehan in there. You've got Darius Andre. We've got some big names. I think Dennehan's going to be the real joker in the pack this year, the real wild card after he won Formula Challenge last year, the series that has now become Formula Sprint 2. So keep your eyes on those names throughout the course of today and of course this season. We're starting the qualifying session now. We're about 4 minutes in already, and we've had some laps coming in. McGorgy is at the top of the times, followed by Stevens and Andre. So very much the kind of people that form would have you believe are going to be top of the order, at least at the start of the season. And there's still plenty of time to go in this qualifying session, and this year it is completely solitary qualifying, so you can't give your teammate a tow, you can't get in the way of anyone else, you're all by yourself, and it's just down to what you can do, Russ.
Indeed it is. Taking a leaf out of some other series books in terms of R-Factor 2 qualifying. So last year, everybody was out on track at the same time, very much like a real-world qualifying session. It was out you go, try and be on track at the best time, and of course you've got to put the laps together. You had to take into account traffic, track condition, maybe getting a slipstream off another car as well. Of course, here at Imola with that big long front straight that isn't really a straight, a big slipstream can really do you wonders. We see Adrian Faber going to P11 with a 124.283, pretty solid lap this early on qualifying. Now we have moved to a private qualifying session. So qualifying is going on, but every single car that's out on track is on track on their own. It's a bit of a tricky concept to understand if you're new to R-Factor 2. Of course, the simulator that is the choice of GPVWC. Of course, if you've been here before, you'll know exactly what we mean. But if you're new to R-Factor 2, essentially, every car is out on track right now, but you just can't. They're not on track together. It's almost like they're on their own track. It's a bit of a weird concept, but essentially it prevents you from getting a slipstream, so it's all about what lap you can put together and you alone. It's just a super fair way of doing qualifying, and of course, once we head into the warm-ups, once we head into the races that we have in store for you tonight, it'll be all the tracks together, and let the carnage ensue. On board now with Isaac Morris, one of the front runners from last year in the number 3 Santa Motorsports car. Hasn't set a lap time actually yet, But he'll be looking to set a good time on his first lap, 2/10 up in the first sector. A little bit of time for improvement there, but of course you've got to get the tyres warm, got to get into the rhythm of the qualifying. Coming into Variante out now, you can really abuse the curbs here, and you can see there taking quite a lot on the inside there coming through, and another 2/10 down in the middle sector. So it's a pretty competitive time so far, looking to be within the top 5 so far from Isaac Morris as he heads into the back end of the circuit, down the hill, turning left. Don't run too far out, don't clip the gravel. Now, don't clip those 2 yellow sausage curves on the inside either, but it's a very nice final corner from Isaac Morris. DRS open, run to the line, what's it going to be? And he goes to P6, a 1:23 there, 0.661, a very competitive lap to open his qualifying with, as David Jont goes into 24. Seeing a few drivers, few familiar faces here. I'm sure you'll be aware, Caitlin. I was, again, saying just before, it seems like basically the entire Super Cup grid has decided to stay on for this new championship of Formula Sprint 1. So if you're a fan of Super Cup last season, you'll be very familiar with what's going on track right now. You know, McGorgy, Stevens, Andre Kropp, those guys were all up the front last year and looking to give us another brilliant display this year.
I think why that's happened is because of the domination that THR demonstrated last season. It meant that a lot of these other drivers couldn't really stick their nose in to the championship fight, and now they've decided to return to finish the job that they attempted to start. Here we are on board with Tom Stevens, who has a very good shot at pole today because he's actually 0.4 of a second ahead of the car behind him. And yes, there is a car ahead of him, Owen McGorgy, but McGorgy actually has a 10-place grid penalty hanging over from last season. So even if Owen McGorgy finishes this session at the top of the times, it won't matter because he'll start 11th at the best. Anyway, McGorgy does set a 122.873. Here comes Stevens. This is looking to be possibly just as good. Oh, it's not quite. It's, oh my goodness, 16 thousandths of a second off the leaders, or off the leader. But the leaders are about half a second ahead of the rest of the field. So right now, a battle is emerging between McGorgy and Stevens specifically. And I'm not surprised by that because those are the 2 drivers with possibly the most experience in this car and the most ability demonstrated at the end of 2021. I expect it's going to be later on in the season where the wild cars like Jake Dennehan and Moritz Kropp, etc., start to really show their hands and get stuck into that title fight. So really interesting one shaking up there. Anyway, 7 minutes to go. The order is McGorgy, Stevens, Andre, Kropp, and Watson, the top 5. Kropp and Watson appear to be improving their laps, and we're on board with Amari Watson in the final sector, Russ.
Indeed, on board now with Watson as he comes through. Of course, just running down the hill into the final few corners. Just a little under 6.5 minutes left in this qualifying session. And Stevens is, well, he's just under 0.02 of a second down on McGorgy. Once again, it's very close, and then 0.6 back to Darius Andre. So a bit of a gap between the front 2. We see Menno Klomp jump to 7th there. Let's see what Watson can do. Crosses the line, does not improve. Moritz Kropp, meanwhile, 2 green sectors as he heads down the back end of the track. Very close to the front running time in the first sector. 10.5 off in the middle. Let's see what he can do. Coming around the final corner, right on the ragged edge as he runs all the way across the curb and then almost all over the white line, runs to the line, goes to 3rd, a 123.211 there. And then we see Alexander Ragozza diving into the pit lane. He's currently in P17, still plenty of time left on the table there for him. Watson still going at it though, he's really pushing hard. I think he knows that, you know, there is extra time left on the table, and he is pushing like, oh, look how close he's getting onto the curve. Some great camera angles here at Imola, and it really just shows the speed of the cars. This may, of course, be the 3rd series in the GPVWC pyramid. Of course, we have 5 series. FS1 is in the middle of those, but these cars are fast, and this field is very tightly contested. It is, you know, this is a very good championship to be in. To win this championship is very prestigious, and the fact that it's in the middle of the GPVWC pyramid just shows how good that this series is, how good this championship is. And with Watson now, another 2 green sectors round in the final corner. That car was just planted coming through the final corner, comes to the line. Target times a 122.8. He's set to 123.2. Doesn't improve in terms of position, but gets closer to Moritz Kropp in front, who did jump him on that last lap. Now under 5 minutes left to go in qualifying. It's all to play for, and the times, Caitlin, are tumbling down.
Indeed, we're looking now at David Yunt, one of the most experienced drivers in the field. Yunt has been a part of GPVWC for many, many years now, also known as Dundo. That's one of his nicknames, and I don't know why. And that's a big slide, and he's going to spin the car, and there goes that lap. So plenty more, well, not plenty more time, a little bit more time for him to improve, for him to have another go. But for now, he's spun the car away. Jake Dennehan there, P11, last year's Formula Challenge champion, and won it in terrific style as well. And I'm describing him as a wild card because, of course, we don't know exactly how competitive he is just yet. We don't know quite how the Formula Challenge field from last year lines up against the Super Cup field from last year. But I suppose he is going to be the measure of that this season. And Tom Stevens here, who won the GPWC Day karting over the winter incidentally, is currently in P2, and he's a much more established driver in Super Cup or Formula Sprint 1 as it's now known. He of course finished third in the championship last year, and still a very young driver, still quite new to GPWC in general. And there's plenty more to come from Tom Stevens, who only made his debut in 2020. Tom Parker as well, another more established one. He's about to come across the line, see if he can improve from P12 for us.
Indeed, and may I just add that you finished second to Tom Stevens, is your claim to fame. I'm surprised you didn't brag about that.
Thank you very much. I didn't
WC Day karting. Yep, that's Caitlin's claim to fame. She finished second behind Tom Stevens, so there you go. Rigotta there crosses the line, stays in 18th. Big mistake there in the last sector, dropped a second and a half on what was quite a competitive lap. 2.5 minutes now left in the first qualifying session of well, I was going to say the FS1 season, but actually FS1 full stop. This, of course, the rebranded Super Cup. This is the first time we've run this, so, well, you know, obviously it is essentially a Super Cup with a new name slapped on it, you know. It's kind of a big deal, I suppose. Kenneth Singleton, yellow in the middle sector, but green in the first. Let's see if he can do anything heading into penultimate corner. Just a little bit squiggly on the exit. Could have run a little bit wider as well. Oh, very, very close to the gravel coming out of the final corner. Brings the car out. DRS open. Swings it in to try and use the momentum. Goes up to 21st. A 124.920. Pretty good lap there. Mike Bell. Nemo. 2 green sectors from Mike in the PB Racing car, one of the new teams on the grid this season. That's not so bad. Again, another improvement it would seem here. He has got time for another lap as well. And as he crosses the line on 124.720, goes to 20th. So there's still time for drivers to be improving. Justin van der Smissen will be wanting to be one of those drivers as he comes to the line now when the number 2 Sanson car goes to 19th. Very nice lap there from Justin. Craig Patterson, I'm not sure if he's going to... No, he will have another lap. Apologies. I thought it was much earlier round than he was. So these drivers that we're seeing now, they will have time for another lap. Very sideways coming out of the penultimate corner. And as he comes onto the front stretch, I don't think that's going to really help him in terms of time. Crosses the line, does improve, stays 7th. And Mike Quick coming down meanwhile. So Caitlin, this is now crunch time. Less than a minute left in qualifying. You know, this is when we're going to see the final laps. This is when we're going to see the push for pole position.
Absolutely, everyone you're seeing starting a flying lap now is going for their final flying run, and these are often the fastest laps as well, because this is when the track is rubbered in and the drivers are tuned in and the cars are at their best. Frank Hamming just improved to P6 there. Mike Quint did improve his time, but he stays 11th. He's a second off the leaders so far. It's actually a relatively spread out grid if you look at it. All 30 drivers have set laps now. But it's, apart from a bit in the midfield where they're all clumped up, relatively spread out. There are little pockets of drivers at this point in time. Here's Frank Hamming. He is faster than his personal best in the first sector, not quite as quick in the second sector. So if he does improve, it's only going to be by a little bit. Could still get into the top 5. He's got to find less than 1/10 of a second to do so. Here he comes to the start-finish line. DRS open on the back of the car, and it's P5 as expected, so there he goes. Moritz Kropp here is probably going to stay 3rd, There's not really much that he can do from there because, yes, so he's still a quarter of a second behind the top two, but does improve on his time, and that gives him a little bit of a safety buffer. But it looks at this point in time, unless Tom Stevens can pull something dramatic out. Oh no, he's gone off. Never mind. So Tom Stevens does not improve on his final flying run, and that means that Owen McGorgy would have pole position, but he won't have pole position because of that 10-second grid penalty, 10 lap grid. 10 place grid penalty. And that, of course, means that despite the off you just saw, Tom Stevens will have pole position for the first round of Formula Sprint 1 2022.
Indeed, he will. Obviously, Caitlin hasn't been commentating enough recently. She can't even speak English at the moment. But indeed, Tom Stevens will not take the pole position award, but will be going off of the front spot on the grid due to McGorgy's grid penalty. But that is it. McGorgy with the fastest lap time, with just under 200ths of a second behind him. But he won't be the man who leads the field away as the 5 red lights go out in a few short moments' time. There we can see the grid. Oh, McGorgy on with the fastest lap, but Tom Stevens will be on pole position with Moritz Kropp alongside him. Then it's Omarai Watson, Frank Hamming, Darius Andre, Craig Patterson, Isaac Morris, Menno Clont, and Jason Muscat rounding out your top 10. Of course, taking into account Owen McGorgy will be in 11th, so Jake Dennehan will be going off of the 10th. And it's Mike Quint, Tom Parker, Luke Mitchell, Damian Kardash, Adrian Faber, Matus Zubinski, Philip Koenig, David Junt, and Alexander Ragota for Gallery 82, rounding out the top 20. A good qualifying from him. Justin van der Smissen up in 21st. That's some good progress on last season that he's made, with Mike Bell and PB Racing in 22nd. Erkans in 3rd, with Vincent Gutt in 24th. Kenneth Singleton lines up in 25th, with Martin Buchanan in 26th for the E-Team Brit car. Capo Michalak in 27th, and James Lambert, the other E-Team Brit car, in 28th. I'm sure they'll be looking to move forward in the race. And then rounding out the grid is Perseus Miram and Gerrit van der Vries down in 30th. So a very, very close grid, though. I mean, we've got the top 25 covered by 2 seconds. That is impressive. Of course, coming into a new season, there's going to be a few drivers who are a bit rusty, maybe haven't put in as much practice as the others, but that is some very respectable lap times that we've just seen there, of course. And, very, very close between the top 2. I'm sure Tom Stevens, will be disappointed he won't have won the pole position outright, even if he does lead the field away at the lights. But, very, very close lap times there. Of course, we'll have the warm-up for you in a few moments' time, followed by our first 31-lap race.
Sorry, you kind of cut out there, so if I interrupted you, that's my mistake. Anyway, I kind of did it a disservice by describing it as a spread out grid. In the mid-pack, it is rather close. There are times separated by just hundreds and thousandths of a second. It looks like a more spread out grid than it is, because there are so many cars here that obviously the difference between first and last is quite significant. But you would expect that with a series with so many drivers, so many different teams. The leaders are relatively close, although there is, in fact, probably the biggest gap in the field is first to second with Stevens and Kropp. That was a quarter of a second, which over Imola is a relatively big distance. That's comfortable for Stevens. He should be relatively unchallenged in the first stint of this next race, providing he doesn't make any mistakes and doesn't get passed off the start. But we'll see. Another thing I noticed is that it's very much a team affair up the front of the field. You would expect that, since those teams are sharing setups, and of course the better the team is, the better drivers they're likely to attract. But you had Nova Simracing up there. They had both their drivers in the top 7. HGP were 4th and 5th in the qualifying times. TCS Off were right up there as well. And Nocturne as well, who are effectively the B team to THR. They had both their cars 2nd and 3rd, proving them. In fact, they're going off 1-2 on the grid. So Nocturne with the advantage right now. But it looks like, even though this is a single make championship, you definitely want to be in a team that knows its stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the aim of the game, isn't it? Unfortunately, motorsports, even when it's single make, it's not equal. the fastest teams win the races. That's how it is. The fastest teams, they have the best setup, they have the best drivers, they usually win. It's just kind of how it works, really. It's a bit different in sim racing. Setups do get shared around a lot between teams. There's a lot of a friendly competitive atmosphere is what I call it. It's less as effective. Of course, you can't really hire the best mechanics either because there are no mechanics in sim racing. But the point remains that it is still very much a team game. It's all about the teams. At the end of the day, you can be the fastest driver in the world, and if you're sitting in the team at the back of the grid, you're not going to do anything, are you? That's just how motorsports, how sim racing works. The fastest teams, they are going to be at the front. They're going to be the teams with the best setups. They coincidentally should, in theory, have the best drivers. But who are we to say? Maybe someone else will surprise us in the 2 races that we've got to come around this 3-mile or 5-kilometer circuit, depends on which measurement unit that you prefer to use. But yeah, a few minutes left to go in the warm-up. You can see the cars out on track, sharing the track together for the first time this season on the broadcast anyway. Multiforce GP guys, nice new livery that they've got going there. I must say that looks very, very smart. Of course, that's one of the joys of the new season. You get the new liveries to look forward to. And they've done quite a good job there, I must say. I do like a little livery review from time to time. And I'm liking what Menocront's done there. It's very, very sharp. So kudos to them. They've done well. But as I said, 6 minutes and 40 seconds left of this warm-up session. You'll see drivers crashing a bit. That's quite likely. Of course, in this warm-up session, you are allowed to escape back to the pit lane, which is against the regulations in the qualifying and race session. So you see drivers, pushing the limits, testing out different tyres. Practice starts is a big one you'll see as well. So, you'll see, and as I say, that yellow flag in Sector 1 comes out, proves my point exactly. As you can see, a car having just gone off the road up ahead at Villeneuve. But yeah, it's just a kind of a session to see the cars out on track, really.
Funny story, it was actually the TCS off cars that collided with each
Really?
other. And if there's one time you are allowed to commit the cardinal sin of motorsport, it's in the warm-up session where it doesn't
Definitely.
matter. But even so, that's a little bit embarrassing. I don't want to sound like a bummer, but actually, I think we've had a downgrade in terms of liveries for this season.
Really?
Yes, I honestly think that the liveries in
overall?
general for this year just kind of look a little clustered, a little kind of not plain, but they've kind of, I don't know, they don't seem to flow as well as they have done before. That's just my critical brain thinking that. I'm sure they're going to grow on me. I think if I do have some favorites, I like the build sim car. For example, the one that Philip Koenig is driving right now. I mean, you can't really go wrong with black and red. It shows up very, very nicely. E-Team Brit has quite a good one, although it's very understated. It looks good under lights, but when it goes through shadows or whatever, you can't really see it. PZZW is always a nice car to look at, as is Gallery 82. But then you have some other cars, and I won't name and shame, but there are a few out there which, in my opinion, look rather clustered this year.
Well, I think the Multiforce boys, they've done alright for themselves anyway. And just back on screen a few moments ago, you'd have seen my point exactly about the warm-up, as we had one of the Gallery 82 cars spinning at the final corner, the TCS off boys racing each other incredibly hard down the main straight and weaving this way and that, as there was a car in the grass off the side of the road, another car stops in a grid box. It's a beautiful bit of chaos before the race.
Oh my goodness.
As we can see there, Koenig getting all sorts of sideways coming around the top of the hill. Very easy to lose it there, to be fair. I'm sure he's going to need a new change of suit after that one. That was quite scary. But again, it's the warm-up. It literally doesn't matter because you can just escape back to the pits. That is the glory of sim racing. Or in the warm-up anyways, there's nothing preventing you from pressing the escape key on your people. You are magically teleported back to the pits, and all of the damage that you've caused is magically repaired for free, and you can go about your session once again. It's just, it's just quite nice to have a nice little chill out and blast. Of course, some drivers out there will be taking this very, very seriously. The top guys, you're thinking, what tyre's working well in this weather? Of course, this is live weather. This is what the weather is currently like. At Imola, albeit in the middle of the day instead of about 9 o'clock in the evening. So it's looking quite a nice day, nice and warm out there. And you'll be thinking, what tyres do I want, what fuel do I want? seems the TCF boys have taken a much more let's just crash into each other approach. They seem to be having a bit of a laugh out there, but they better hurry up with it because unfortunately there's just a little over 3 minutes left.
This is what the weather was like an hour or two ago.
Oh, is it? My mistake. I do apologise.
It's okay. It makes pretty much no difference because I'm sure that the weather is pretty much like this now anyway. As you say, albeit much darker as it would be in real life. Anyway, in terms of, I'm just looking through the YouTube chat actually to see who's joining us and who they're cheering for. Good to see you all here. The chat looks very active right now. That's fantastic. A couple of people commenting about TCS off. A couple of fans for Ada Erkan in the chat, and Erkan's actually going quite well in this practice session before. And I'm not going to lie, I don't think I've heard of Ada Erkan before. And looking at his database on the site, that's because he is actually making his GPVWC debut today. So welcome in to Ada Erkan, a Turkish driver racing for Friesland Racing Team alongside Gerrit de Vries, and obviously with an already established fan base in the chat. The Turks like their sim racing drivers, don't they? I remember when Cem Bolakbasi made his debut in single-seater racing. It was always the Turkish fans that were the most vocal in the YouTube chat for those races as well. So obviously sim racing blowing up over there in Turkey right now, and Ada Erkan is riding that wave.
I mean, it's one of those interesting questions, isn't it? I mean, motorsport is, again, it's unfortunately one of those sports where money is king, and you typically see drivers from more well-off countries coming to the fore because they can afford to make their way through. Countries like Turkey, they really haven't had that much exposure on a global motorsport stage. So to see Cem Bolakbasi, breaking through, making his Formula 2 debut this year, that's massive. So there's obviously been a massive uptick of interest from Turkey. And of course, he's come from sim racing, so they've gone, oh, let's get interested in that as well, which, I'm not complaining about. The more viewers, the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. It's, of course, wonderful to have you all along here for the debut round of the GPVWC Formula Sprint 1 Championship. Full stop, not just for 2021, of course. We've had a shuffle. No more is Super Cup. Long live FS1 as Omari Watson gets a practice start. We've just got a little left, over a minute before the end of the warm-up session. Actually, that's a lie. You've got a little over half a minute. I do apologise. And you'll be seeing a few drivers getting some practice starts now, because this is kind of the last opportunity they really have to have. And then what's going to happen is essentially the checkered flag will come out. All the drivers will magically teleport back to the pit lane. There'll be a bit of a glitch from the game as it tries to figure out what it's doing with itself. Give it a chance. It's back to 2. It's old now. It's 10 next year, isn't it? I think it's 10 next year.
Yeah, I think it is. Wow.
Yeah, how time flies. Yeah, 10 next year. Fair play. It's done all right for itself. But yeah, you'll see the cars jumping back into their pit boxes. The game having a bit of a moment as the checkered flag comes out around about now. And there you go. And then what will happen is the drivers will then start one by one teleporting themselves onto the grid. And then we'll run through our grid on the formation lap and then go, pedal to the metal for 31 laps for race 1.
Now, Ross, here's an interesting thing. The race director is just reminding everyone of the rules. He says the drivers with the top 10 fastest qualifying laps must start on their qualifying tyre compound. So I believe that would give Jake Dennehan a free pass, despite the fact he's starting from 10th position. And it would lock Owen McGorgy into starting on the softer compound of tyre because he will be starting from 11th. But he did have one of the top 10 fastest qualifying laps. So I don't think it's to do with where they're actually starting on the grid right now. It's to do with where they qualified in the session proper. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll have a graphic after after everyone's scrolled past the screen on the formation lap. We'll have a graphic showing you what tyres everyone's on, and that's important because this first race is going to have a pit stop. You're going to have to use both compounds of dry tyre, the harder tyre and the softer tyre. It's 31 laps, so we're expecting the pit stop to take place anywhere between maybe lap 10 and lap 20, 21, that kind of period, depending on what tyres people start on and how the race goes. And then, of course, it's a bit early to be thinking about that, but after that, we have a second race, which is a straight sprint for 21 laps, one compound of tyre. You do the full thing without a pit stop if you can. Anyway, we're preparing for the start of the formation lap now. Chris Williamson, the race director, reminding everyone to take care on the opening laps and all of that jazz, and we're getting ready to go for the 2022 season.
Indeed, we are. Of course, Caitlin has an ear in the drivers' team speak. That's where all the communication from the race director is done to the drivers. So unfortunately, we can't get that up on the broadcast, but Caitlin is going to, of course, keep us posted as the race goes on to any happenings that need to be discussed. And of course, we can see as well what's going on the Discord in the Race Director channel. If you are not in the Discord and you want to get involved, if you want to join GPVWC, don't be afraid to click on the link that is in the YouTube description. And, as well, you can go and check out the website because it's, there's a new website, or it's an old website. Anyway, onto the grid. Tom Stevens and Moritz Kropp lock out the front row for Nocturne. Mari Watson is in P3 and Fran Hemming in P4. It's an HGP all row 2. Then it's TCS off and Nova breaking the trend. Darius Andre followed by Craig Patterson with Morris and Menno Klomp close behind them in P7 and 8. Then P9, we've got Jason Muscat and Jake Denham rounding out the top 10 on a free choice of tyre. Then Omar Gorgi down 11th. He's stuck on his qualifying tyre after qualifying on pole with a 10-second position. And then P13, Tom Parker with Luke Mitchell in P14. Damien Kardash is P15 and Adrian Faber is P16. Good to see Damien Kardash getting up that high. Good qualifying from him. Mateusz Zubinski is P17 with Philip Koenig in 18th. David Yunt is 19th for the Advale Esports guys. They're celebrating their 5th anniversary this year. And Alexander Ragosa is in 20th. Justin van der Smissen is 21st with Mike Bell in 22nd. Arda Erkan, our Turkish hero, it would seem, is in P23 for Frisland, and Vincent Gutt, the other valet driver, in 24th. And it's Kenneth Singleton in P25, and Marcin Buchan, the first of the E-Team Brit drivers, in at 26th. Carben Michalak for Smile Power in 27th, and then James Lambert in the other E-Team Brit car in 28th. Persius Miram in 29th, and then rounding out the grid for Frisland Racing Team is Gerrit de Vries. That is the grid for today as we're coming to the end of our formation lap. Caitlin, any predictions?
Well, it's going to be hard to bet against Tom Stevens for this first race, judging by the fact he has Moritz Kropp in second place, and there was a quarter of a second between the two in qualifying. But this is GPWC, anything can happen. We got a pit stop, and actually on the left-hand side of the screen there, you see what tyres everyone's starting on. It shows you that the top driver on hard tyres is going to be Tom Parker from P13. Luke Mitchell behind him is going to also be on the hard tyre, and then so are all of those other drivers, where you see the little yellow H next to the name. Onto the grid go the leaders. We're waiting for the last few cars to get into position, and then we will be ready to go for 2022. We've already had the first Academy and Formula Sprint 2 races, and it's time for Formula Sprint 1 to follow suit. We have 5 red lights, and when they go out, we'll be underway for this year. And it's go, and Tom Stevens leads away from the start, covers off his teammate immediately. Kropp has a little bit of extra speed, actually, and look at the HGP cars coming through from behind. Turn 1 is the first heavy braking zone. Frank Hamming takes a look to the inside, and there's a touch, and off in the background goes someone. I think that may have been one of the TCS off cars who's gone skittering into the gravel. But anyway, Luke Mitchell's off. Darius Andre has no rear wing, and that's the first crash of the year. Up in front, it's still the Not 10 car of Tom Stevens leading us around, followed by Frank Hamming, then Moritz Kropp. So Hamming has split the Not 10s, and then of course you've got the HGPs, Hamming second, Watson fourth, and Craig Patterson is best of the rest in 5th position as the damaged cars attempt to return to the pit lane.
I think I saw 2, maybe 3 cars going off the first corner. All look like separate incidents as well. So a big shame for them. But looks like the majority of the field has got through clean at least. And, well, good to kick the new season off with a bang, quite literally. I suppose. But it is Tom Stevens leading the race. Already got a second on Frank Hamming in P2. And Moritz Krop again, another 3/10 back from them. But so far, all action stations very, very tight between the drivers as they come around. Krop did lose out to Hamming in that first corner, so it's no longer a nocturne 1-2. Hamming already pulling to the outside, coming away from the final corner. He's trying desperately to break the toe. 30 laps remaining, the first lap of the season complete, and it is Tom Stevens who leads the first ever Formula Sprint 1 lap in GPVWC history. And Krop is closing, but he's not closing enough. He's not going to have a chance this time around into Tabarot. Oh no! Who was that that got Tabarot? That's Muscat. That's Muscat goes round at turn 1 for Multiforce GP. I'm not sure if there was contact there with Isaac Morris, but we just see him going round. And a big shame for him. He's fallen down to P20. Oh, what a shame. And it looks like the chaos hasn't yet concluded as Muscat spins and tumbles down the order. We can see cars there in the background getting squeezed all the way to the inside line. We see Koenig getting overtaken by David Yunt there on the inside, up the hill. Great overtake there by David Yunt, but Koenig not taking no for an answer. Omagorgi, meanwhile, already up to P9 after his grid penalty. He may have profited from the two spinners, to be fair, so no positions actually gained, but it's a good start on lap 2 for Omagorgi. Now he has to get his head down and focus and get past Clont in front, which is no easy task. Clont is a very, very strong defensive driver. Omagorgi already putting the pressure on as they come around the final corner. And well, after this lap, DRS will be enabled, and then overtaking becomes just a little bit easier.
And it was contact with Isaac Morris that caused the spin from Jason Muscat. I'm not going to put blame on either driver, although Muscat has been in the wars. Look at Krop now approaching Hamming. Took a look, but he's a little far back for now. And other drivers further back are going to attempt to do a similar thing. But yeah, Muscat has been in the wars because it was actually contact with him and Darius Andre that caused the starting crash. And then further back, the other driver involved, Luke Mitchell, just seemed to get elbowed out. It was a separate incident, it seems. Darius Andre has now become our first retirement after going off on the first lap of the race. 29 cars remain. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 3 for some reason, which is a bit strange since I don't see anyone there, except for Luke Mitchell, actually, so unless he had another little spin, which he did. Okay, that's a shame. Anyway, so Stevens, Hamming, Krop, Watson, Patson are the top 5 at this point in the race, as they have been since the start. But Moritz Krop, remember, qualified ahead of Frank Hamming and is attempting to get back into that second position to make it a Nocturne 1-2 once again. He's heading towards the start-finish straight. DRS is available this time around for the first time, and this could be an attempt for Moritz Krop here, Russ.
Could indeed. DRS open for the number 41 Nocturne driver. Look how much he's gaining. Oh, this is going to be easy, isn't it? It's already pulling to the outside, and it's done. It's already done. Why do I bother? There is no point. That was the easiest overtake you will ever see. Craig Patton, a little bit harder with Watson on the inside. Oh, bit of a squeeze there for Watson from Patton, but he does indeed make it. Omagorgi, meanwhile, not able to get a move done yet. Look at that from Goetze to the inside of Philip Koenig. Great move up the inside into Tamburello. It is a brilliant little overtaking spot there, if you can get it right. And Tom Parker, meanwhile, still stuck behind Faber with a yellow flag out in Sector 1. And oh, there we see that was Tom Parker getting past Faber after Faber runs onto the gravel. And, well, that's the only way he's making it. Oh, no! That's De Vries without a front wing, and that's Michalak without a rear wing. And there's obviously been some contacts, and oh, no, Michalak's gone round trying to get the speed back up, and he's retired from the race. Our second retirement of the race. Of course, he will be making an appearance once again in race 2. That is a big shame. Obviously, there was some contact between the pair of them, and another accident, and our second retirement of the season.
Apparently we don't have any replays, but after looking back at that incident, I'll let you know how it happened. Perseus Miram, meanwhile, also doesn't have a front wing, and that was caused because James Lambert and Kasper Michalak made contact in turn 1, spun it around. Miram seemed to go around in avoidance, and then De Vries couldn't avoid the whole melee. So that's how that was all caused, and a big mess further back, which was even bigger than it first looked. Look at McGorgy, he's coming up alongside around the outside of Jake Dennehan, who touches him. They bang wheels slightly, and McGorgy's lucky not to get edged off into the gravel at that point in time. Menu Klont is the Multiforce car you see involved in that one as well. He is in P7 at this point in time. So it's Klont, Dennehan, and McGorgy, 7th, 8th, and 9th, heading up the hill towards the second sector of the course. We've seen cars banging wheels into this corner pretty much every lap of the way so far as well. And this lap they seem to just about get through one by one by one. Mike Quint now following them closely as well. He's gained about half a second on them in the first sector of this lap due to their various battles. And on to lap 5 we go.
Now, this is the stage of the race where I'm now starting to think about when are these drivers going to dive into the pits. Of course, the soft shed runners, they're going to need to come in first. Of course, if you're new to motorsports and sim racing, a soft tyre, it's a softer compound of rubber. It gets up to the working temperature much quicker than a harder tyre. It provides more instantaneous grip than a harder tyre, but it then runs out of said grip much quicker as well. A harder tyre, it's genuinely considered a better race car as Dennehan to the outside. Oh, but there's a slow-going car! And he's going to have to back off as they try and lap the slow-going car. Oh, and Dennehan's day ruined by traffic, and he's going to have to do that again. And he's lost a lot of time, and now McGorgy maybe kind of have a look into Villeneuve. That would be a brave move. He decides against it. So Dennehan gets lucky after McGorgy doesn't go for the move, but that would have been a great move had traffic not gotten in the way. As I was saying, though, it's all about the tyres. Oh, was it Koenig that they went past there?
Koenig's had a spin anyway. Koenig's had a spin.
Ah, I see. So there's obviously problems for Philip Koenig there. But as I was saying, again, if you're new to motorsports, the soft tyre, it's the qualifying tyre. It's the faster tyre, but it runs out quicker. The harder tyre, which is what some of these drivers are on, it lasts longer into the race. It may not provide as much instantaneous grip, but it lasts longer. It's generally considered a better race tyre. There goes Isaac Morris.
Oh, no.
Oh, backs it into the barrier. Rear wing intact, but I'm not sure if there's damage, and he comes out right in front of Kardash. Great reactions there from Kardash to avoid going into the back of Isaac Morris, but I think just too much curb, too much on the inside of Variante Outer, upset the rear of the car, and around he goes. It's so easy to spin one of these single-seater machines, and Isaac Morris, one of the best drivers that we have on this grid, just demonstrating how hard it is to drive these things. There is Craig Patterson, meanwhile, to the inside of Watson, going into Tamburello. That was easy.
Yeah, those two swapped just now off, I say off screen. It was on my screen, but anyway, Isaac Morris has just got back up into P10 ahead of Damien Kardash. Meanwhile, the two Gallery 82 cars on the fringes of the top 10. But yeah, Craig Patterson now back up into 4th place ahead of Amari Watson. Morris has done well actually to only drop to 10th place. He was lucky not to come back straight into traffic when he went off. That was a very, very close one indeed. Meanwhile, we've lost Gerrit de Vries from this race, so 3 retirements so far, 27 cars remaining. Goodness, it's all going on right now. The Nocturne cars are now back together again. They are within, well, Crop is now within DRS range of Tom Stevens. Whether they're going to fight or not at this point, I don't know. Both of them, of course, are likely to be championship contenders, or at least contenders for wins. And it's way too early to be thinking about the championship right now. But there may be team orders in the form of whoever leads into turn 1 wins the race, or maybe no fighting for the pit stop stages or something like that. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Amari Watson, meanwhile, is likely to attack Craig Patterson again. These two have swapped places twice in the last few laps, and they're going to swap places again, are they? Because Watson is to the inside of Craig Patterson, and they do. It's just a slipstream slingshot effect battle between the two of them right now. Watson goes back into 4th place, and behind them you see the train of Dennehan, Klont, McGorgy, and Quint as well. Goodness, an exciting race at this point in time. Drivers still swapping positions like it's the second lap.
Just saw Rigotta there setting the fastest lap of the race. I'm not sure if he's on, if he's stopped yet. I don't think he has. That's out of nowhere on what will be quite worn soft tyres at this point. So an impressive lap there from Rigotta. On board, though, with the man who was on pole in qualifying, not on pole to start the race, Owen McGorgy. He has moved now up to 8th, but he's still stuck behind Clont. He just can't seem to make that gap appear. It seems like Denahan almost just being a moving chicane for Clont, who's being a moving chicane for McGorgy, which, of course, not ideal, if we put it lightly. Of course, McGorgy, another great driver to have on this grid, finishing 11th in last year's Super Cup Champion. 2 wins to his name. As at Kardash, it looks, yep, gone off the road at the final corner. Oh, who's that spinning out there? Another spinner at the final corner, Kenneth Singleton. For Alpha Delta goes around at the final corner just at the front of our camera shot. And it seems like Imola proving a tough track to tackle for the drivers out there today, even for some of the finer drivers that we have on this Formula Sprint 1 grid. As I was saying, though, Owen McGorgy, a great driver, a few wins under his belt last season. Oh, no!
Denahan crashes into the wall. He'd just been passed by Menno Clont, and now he's got no front wing because he's bounced off the barriers. I did that in the Formula Sprint 2 race the other day. But anyway, Jake Denahan makes exactly the same mistake, and he's now a long way from the pit lane. Massive, massive shame for him, and a good job that Mike Quint and everyone behind him avoided him. McGorgy's lost place to Quint and all of that, so I wonder if he was slower to get past the wreck as it was happening. So Clont's now 6th, Quint's now 7th, McGorgy is now 8th. That puts Isaac Morris back into 9th, Alexander Ragosa back into the top 10. And Jake Denahan will be lucky to come away with any points at all from this one. He'll be able to make his pit stop now, going to the hard tyres, but whether the hard tyres will be able to last the remainder of the race or not is a different matter. We still have a lot of the race remaining.
Indeed. Big shame there for Denahan. McGorgy actually lost out to Quint there in the avoiding action, but at least he now isn't stuck behind what was seeming to be the Denahan train, and now we're seeing the DRS in full force and McGorgy to the outside. The move's done before the braking zone. I mean, sometimes I do wonder why I bother, to be honest. Very, very easy move there for the Irishman, Owen McGorgy. Parker, meanwhile, for the PB car, he's got a double slipstream ahead. He's going to try and make it 3 wide, surely not, no. Decides to commit to the outside, but can't get round. As Van der Smissen, that was, getting past Jabinski. Great move there from Van der Smissen down the inside. He's made some real progress, up from 21st on the grid. This is a good showing from Justin Van der Smissen. We did see him a few times last year, with a bit of a steep learning curve in the Super Cup for Justin Van der Smissen, but it seems like he's getting his FS1 season off to a great start, moving up to 15th. Zibunski, what can he do in retaliation as they head up the grid? They looks to the inside, can't find the space, and as they now head back down the hill into this super tricky complex, that double right-hander, you're braking while turning, something which you're taught on day 1 of learning to sim race, just don't bother doing. And Imola goes, here, why don't you do it anyway? Full defensive mode, Zabinski to the inside, into Variante outer, can't get on the brakes late enough. Unfortunately, he is on the harder compound of tyres. That is something to consider. Van der Smissen has not stopped yet, and Krop is right on the back of Stevens. Krop is really close up to Stevens. I wonder if Stevens has made a mistake.
No, he hasn't made a mistake. I tell you what, though, I'm not sure they're racing, because I've been watching Krop's inputs here, and he wasn't full on the throttle at the end of the straight there, so it looked to me as if he could maybe have put himself alongside Stevens into the braking zone and didn't bother. Whether that's only for safety or for team orders, I don't know, but it doesn't look as if the two of them are racing at this point in time. Look at Van der Smissen now banging wheels again with Mateusz Ziabinski. And coming through on the outside, is that Tom Parker getting involved? That is, in the PB Racing car. Parker having a slower start to the race than he would have liked, but he's close to the points now. Points going down to 15th position. Van der Smissen loses a place. Mike Bell in the other PB Racing car is behind them. Interesting message on the inside of the halo of the PB Racing car. Shirts off. A bit early in the year for that, my friend. But anyway, Smissen taking another look to the inside, and that's going to put him under pressure from Mike Bell.
Seems like Justin Van der Smissen, hero to somewhat zero in the space of about a lap, falls to 17th and is now under pressure from Mike Bell, with DC McGorgy moving up to 6th in that final lap as well. And there we see Ragosa having a look to the inside of Isaac Morris. Morris, who's had a great comeback after his off early on, and Ragosa now will have the DRS as they head down the main straight. He's got the slipstream. Look how close he is, tailing to the inside. So we will have the braking into the Tamburello chicane. And once again, the move done before the braking zone. So easy as you like for Alexander Ragota. Adrian Faber, meanwhile, unable to make the move on Damien Kardash as they head out of Tamburello and towards Villeneuve. Mike Bell looking, going. Unfortunately, can't get the move on Justin van der Smissen, who I'm starting to wonder if his tyres are beginning to run out. He's really struggling. I'm not sure if that's just can't quite get back into the groove after losing those 2 positions, or if he's maybe starting to think about coming in for a stop. Oh, and that's Bell off the road. Bell running wide, coming out of the Villeneuve chicane and going off the road. So that takes all of the pressure off of van der Smissen's shoulders and just shows how easy it is to get it all wrong. Just a simple little mistake off the road and all of that time lost. 2 seconds back now, and that's how easy it is.
Incidentally, Frank Hamming is now right on the back of Moritz Kropp as well. He lost a little bit of time in the 3rd sector, but had gained a lot in the previous sectors, and he's in DRS range and using it as he goes down the start-finish straight. Again, all these yellow flags. I swear there's a yellow flag that pops up every single lap, and I have to scramble through the order every time to see who it is. Mike Quint this time is the driver who's off, and he was running about 7th place. And now he's facing backwards, so Quint's going to head into the pits to try to repair those flat-spotted tyres. And it's a shame for a driver who was having a good race. But yeah, Imola really biting. Look at Faber to the outside of Damien Kardash. And going through, not quite. But anyway, that's for 10th position, now that, that Quint's had an incident. And Damien Kardash gets through ahead. But yeah, Imola, an extremely difficult circuit. You've got elevation change, the curbs are tricky. In some places you've got serrated curbs, and if you put two of those tyres over that curb and your other tyres are still on the racetrack, you have a real unbalance and or an unbalancing effect, which can just spin the car around or hook it off the road, and you just go sliding until you reach a wall or a gravel trap. And it's tough. It's a very tough course. But anyway, these drivers, some of the best that sim racing has to offer, with the exception, of course, of part of the Super Lights and the Super League field, which you'll see racing soon. Moritz Kropp now even closer to Tom Stevens, and once again you see him lifting and coasting pretty much into the braking zone. If he wanted to pass Tom Stevens, I feel like he would have done it there.
Indeed. So it seems to me that I almost wanted to say that Stevens actually led off to try and get Kropp in his slipstream to try and work with him so they could pull away from Hamming. It wasn't working. Now it seems to be working, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there in that camp. But you know, the two teammates clearly not racing each other at the moment, as Tom Parker to the outside of Zabinski gets around the outside into the braking zone slightly later on the brakes. Nice little move there from Parker into Tamburello, and now sets his eyes forward a few seconds ahead to Jason Muscat. So he's got a bit of time to work up, but we're coming into the pit stop windows now, coming up to around about halfway through the first race of the evening, the first race of the Formula Sprint 1 series and of the championship. Full stop, of course. This being part of the GPV reshuffle that we've seen at the back end of the 2021 season, coming in to 2022. We've seen this big shake-up for GPV, and well, Formula Sprint 1 was one of the outcomes of that. And well, on board with Kropp, and you can see, yeah, he's just running hard. He's lifting off as they're heading down the straight. You can see in the live data in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, he has just set the fastest lap of the race, but he is very much lifting off there. There is no attempt to overtake Tom Stevens. So I wouldn't say as much team orders in play for the Nocturne Camp, the second team of THR who dominated the championship last season. Obviously wanting to stay involved in the in this kind of echelon of the GPV calendar. But you know, clearly there's no team orders in play, but clearly they've decided to not race each other. It's too early into the season, too early into the race to even think about having a move. Let's just keep it cool, get to the pit stops, get our heads down. David Yunt, meanwhile, we've had 5 years of valour that they're celebrating this year. P9, I'm sure that they'd love to get some points here in race 1 to kick off their season with a bang. He's got some pressure from behind, but it seems to be holding it for the time being. Bit of a gap to go to in front, so we can focus it all on keeping Kardash behind in the Gallery 82 car. And again, I'm still thinking, what's the strategy going to be like? Imola, it's not actually too bad for your tyre wear. It actually goes against what you think. You'd think looking at the circuit that it would be ripping tyres to shreds, up and down, left and right, lots of fast corners. It's actually relatively okay. So when did the soft runners come in? When do the hard runners come in? And then what happens in the second phase of the race? Who's going to come out on top? Maybe we'll see another team getting it right. Nocturne might be having a bit of a strategy fumble. Who knows? And then, of course, we've got the pure sprint reverse grid race too to look forward to. And again, if you're new to GPVWC, just to let you know, there is no set for the reverse grid. So, unlike most reverse grid races, as we see Damien Kardash to the inside of David Yunt there, very easy move with the DRS open. Like most reverse grid races in sim racing and motorsport, when a driver finishes, say, in 10th in race 1, they'll get pole position in race 2. That's just how it works. There's the set position that becomes pole position. Not in GPV. What we do here is a random number. I believe it's from 6 to 15. Correct me if I'm wrong. So from position 6 to 10, I do apologise. That's changed for this year, I think. So from 6 to 10, there is a random number pulled from a hat. And whatever that number is, the driver that is finished in that position in race 1, they are on the pole for race 2. So it could be anyone. So currently from Owen McGorgy down to Yunt. So it could be any one of those drivers that we see there. Isaac Morris coming out of the pit lane onto the medium tyres, just behind Tom Parker, who has not come out of the pit lane. So he's got to deal with the fresh rubber behind. This is where now the pit stops are coming in. We're going to be seeing the effect, how much faster that fresh rubber is, Caitlin.
Alexander Ragosa is one of those who... Oh no, he hasn't gone into the pits, he's spun. I saw him dropping down the order and I assumed he'd been in, but he's been off. So Alexander Ragosa has made a mistake there, putting Jason Muscat into the top 10. Ragosa touched the barriers, so he's lucky to... And he's spun again, so Ragosa has lost the rear tyres of the car, I presume, and he's definitely going to be into the pits, because if he doesn't, his tyres are going to look like 50 pence pieces. But yeah, it's all going from bad to worse there for Alexander Ragosa, who does indeed dive into the pit lane. I'm surprised that we haven't seen any of the top runners coming in. No one actually coming in from the top 10 just yet, because it's past the halfway point in the race. This is about when you'd expect the first few top runners to come in. And sorry, I was just distracted there because it looked as if Manu Klump was making an overtake. He was actually lapping a driver who'd been involved in an incident earlier on. Right, towards the end of this lap, keep an eye on Krop and Hamming. Hamming is so close to the back of Krop, but is not able to get through. And I wonder whether Hamming will dive into the pit lane now to see if he can get the undercut into the second Ravazza there. And into the pits comes Krop, so it's the other way around. Moritz Krop making a stop before his teammate does, and he will go onto the hard compound of tyre, which will take him right the way through to the end of the race. Meanwhile, I'm afraid Mike Quint has retired from the race after his spin that we just seen just now, and to the dismay of all of our Turkish fans, I'm afraid to report that Arda Erkan has also retired from his GPWC debut, and that appears to have been in a separate incident that took place down at turn 1. And it wasn't his fault, actually, because looking back at the replay, Justin van der Smissen was already losing control in a separate accident, and Erkan had nowhere to go. So a big shame there for Arda Erkan, who's retired through no fault of his own. Anyway, the race continues. Here you see Moritz Krop running in 9th position at this point in time, and he's got relatively clean air after his pit stop, so that has gone very well, Russ.
Indeed, it has. Coming out into P9. Interesting to see the Krop stopped first. Normally, when you're in this situation with two teammates, kind of alongside each other, typically the driver in first just comes in first. That's just... they get the precedence, they get the preference of the earlier stop. So they then don't have to do an extra lap on worn tyres. But clearly Tom Stevens thinks he can as he now dives into the pits on lap 18. Hamming will take the lead of the race as we go on to lap 19, although the timing screen hasn't updated for some reason, but we did just see Tom Stevens coming in. There we go, it should now be fixed. Thank you very much And of course, just to as we come up to lap 20 with Stevens coming out, should be before crop. I'd be surprised if he isn't before crop. It is a long old pit lane though here at Imola, annoyingly long in fact. So it's a long time sat there. Where does Stevens come out? Is that crop behind? Yes, it is. So he does come out a few seconds in front of crop. Crop should catch him by the time they get to turn 1. And as I was saying, of course, if you're watching along, thank you very much for joining us here in the first round of the GPVWC Formula Sprint 1 Championship of the 2022 season. Of course, if you're watching along YouTube, thank you very much for joining us. Don't be afraid to click that like and subscribe button. It really does help out everybody here at GPVWC. And of course, don't be afraid to keep posting along on social media with the GPVWC and Formula Sprint 1 hashtags. We are looking along at your comments. We are following with you this race. We're just as excited for it as you are. Of course, myself and Caitlin. First time we've been back in the booth together since the back end of last year. So it's been a bit of a while for us too, and we're both very glad to be here. And we've had a very exciting race so far, hoping that it finishes on a conclusion as Hamming keeps going onto lap 20. And of course, don't forget that we have another exciting race for you after this one as well. 2 races per night in the Formula Sprint series, both FS1 and FS2. So lots of excitement to look forward to here. But Hamming going for another lap. That is interesting. McGorgy and Clont both in. So Watson up to P2. Muscat doesn't come in. So it'll be Hamming from Watson, from Muscat, from Stevens, from Crop as your new top 5. Hamming, Watson and Muscat all yet to box. Has Muscat boxed? No, Muscat hasn't boxed. I do apologise. So it will be Stevens in the net lead of the race. And looking at the timing screen, I think McGorgy might be in with a shout of being maybe potentially looking at 4th, 3rd if he pushes hard. So McGorgy, he's done alright for himself so far, as Yunt gets a penalty there. Not sure what that is for. But yeah, that's not bad going from Owen McGorgy. I mean, again, we know he's a very quick driver. Well, let's see what we can do over the remainder of this race.
Well, Yunt's just been in the pit lane, so I presume that is a pit lane speeding violation. Anyway, so to HGP Motorsport 1-2 temporarily, but Frank Hamming now does come into the pit lane, and that will give the lead to his teammate Amari Watson, who I'm sure will stay out to avoid double stacking. So Watson stays out and takes the lead, Jason Muscat will take 2nd, and Tom Stevens and Moritz Kropp are now approaching Jason Muscat and will presumably have to pass him on track unless Muscat comes in soon. Muscat, though, has a reputation for staying out very long into races, and he does come into the pits. Also, drivers are suddenly dropping like flies, I'm afraid to say, because after those incidents for Quinn, Erkan, etc., Kenneth Singleton has been into the wall in a very similar way to how we saw Jake Dennehan crash earlier on. Justin van der Smissen has retired in the pit lane, and I'm afraid we've lost both Santa Motorsport cars now, because Isaac Morris had a crash, he spun the car, and Tom Parker had nowhere to go. Now Parker appears to have got away with it, he didn't even lose a wing in that one, although presumably will have a tiny bit of suspension damage or something along those lines. Isaac Morris's car got off much worse, that was destroyed, and he's now out of the race, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, big shame for Isaac, he is a good lad, I know him reasonably well. Yeah, that's a big shame for him. But, you know, all seasons can't start golden. I'm sure he'll be back in fighting in race 2, but he will, of course, be starting near the back of the grid. Race 2, the grid, there is the reverse grid up the front with the rules, as I explained earlier, with the pulling out of the hat, and then you reverse the grid off of what position you pull out. And then everyone else, it's where you finish. If you DNF in race 1, you're making yourself hard. It's going to be hard for race 2. Watson now comes in. Stevens will inherit the lead, and he should come out in front of McGorgy, so it will be McGorgy maintaining 5th. Watson, yeah, so Watson should come out in 4th, so it should be Stevens from Crop from Hamming. Once again, 10 laps remaining, so it's basically where we were before the pit stops. There go the 2 Nocturne boys down the outside. As we can see, that is Hamming going through now. Where is McGorgy? Again, it's a long pit lane. There's McGorgy, he's quite far back, so it looks like Watson is going to get out well in front. So we will maintain P4, just got to get those tyres up to temperature now, get them in the operating window, get them to the end of the race, and Amari Watson is looking like he's in for a brilliant finish for the start of his season.
Here's David Yunt. I'm not sure whether the penalty's been revoked to be reviewed after the race or not, but for now, Yunt goes up into 8th place, passing Jason Muscat. We may see him diving into the pits to serve that penalty in due time. But of course, the stewards do have the option, especially if it's a track limits. I'm not sure if track limits penalties actually are turned on for this, but if it is a track limits penalty, often it's revoked during the race and then reassessed afterwards if the stewards judge it to be a legitimate violation. Meanwhile, Hamming has lost time to the Nocturne drivers during the pit stop stages, meaning that it's comfortably a Nocturne 1-2 now. They've got 3 seconds over Frank Hamming behind. Murray Watson's dropped back even further, but it is Nocturne, HGP, just as it was in the starting order. And then, in fact, it's Nova, because Owen McGorgy is up to 5th, and Craig Patterson is in 6th, and someone's off there, and that's a lapped car. So one of the build sim cars appears to have gone off the road, and that was Philip Koenig, but he resumes the race in 21st position. 18 cars are on the lead lap at this point in time. 22 cars are still in the race, and it's the animals going in 2 by 2. Hurrah, hurrah, for the first 6 cars in the order.
Indeed it is. Seems now it's all about just bringing the car home, really. Of course, not far from the end of the race. 8 laps remaining in race 1. So it's all kind of really, if you can push for the last few positions, maybe think about it, but now your eyes are just firmly picturing the checkered flag falling. You want that short little break before race 2, maybe to go get a drink, run to the toilet, grab a quick snack, just have a few moments to cool down. That's one of the pleasures of being in the Formula Sprint Championships, is you do get those 2 races. You do have a moment of calm tranquility where you can just calm down, reflect on what's happened before you get racing again for the always chaotic sprint event. If you've never watched a GPV race, to be fair, this race 1 has been pretty good. Race 2, it's the sprint race. It will be absolute chaos as we see Muscat looking to the outside on the way into Variante Alta. Unfortunately, he can't make anything of it, bouncing over the curbs. And it looked like Yunt made a mistake coming out of the left-hander first, but he's managed to maintain the lead and again crop right on the back of Stevens, but just not pushing. You can tell that they're working together to try and pull away from Hamming. Look at the throttle coming into Villeneuve. Yep. Okay, it wasn't too bad into there actually, but he's lifting, he's barely on the brakes. He's not pushing hard. He's just doing enough to stay with Stevens. He's not pushing hard, staying in the slipstream, keeping with his teammate. I'd be surprised if he was using DRS, to be honest. There's no point. These guys aren't fighting. They want to bring home a 1-2. They want to kickstart their season the best way they can, and it's not by fighting and causing a massive infight between the team all season long. Now, Owen McGorgy shaving 5 seconds off of Murray Watson on that last lap. He is closing. He's 1.5 seconds away, and he is closing. So McGorgy does have his eyes on P4. I think P3 would be a bit too far at this stage in the race. Watson's about 12 seconds back, but it seems that Watson isn't quite getting the pace out of these tyres that he's gone onto. There's a bit of a weave there from McGorgy, perhaps some dirt on the rubber. But McGorgy, P4, I'd say it's looking likely. And that is a strong P4 as well, coming from P11 on the grid after that 10th-place grid penalty that carried over from last season. That is impressive. Actually, I do wonder why the 10th-place penalty carried over, because surely because we've had the rebrand to FS1, it's technically classed as a different championship. I mean, I don't know. I don't run GPVWC. I'm not one of the official people, but in my book, I'd wipe that clean because it's technically a different championship in my book. But yeah, I don't know. You tell me.
I'm sorry, but it doesn't quite work like that. Anyway, Owen McGorgy continues to chase down Murray Watson. This is great stuff from Owen. I've just been on a bit of a journey, actually. I noticed Martin Buchan having a little bit of a spin in the E-Team Brit car, and I realised I don't think I've heard of Martin Buchan before. So I looked him up on the site to see if he's actually done GPVWC before. He is a returning driver, and by returning, I mean that his last event with us was in 2008. So, Martin Buchan, who used to be a Super League driver, made his debut in 2004, and after all this time has returned to GPVWC. So welcome back, that is fantastic stuff. This is his 2nd FS1 race, and the last one he drove was at San Marino in 2006, where he finished in 5th position.
Yeah.
But My goodness, we've got we're, that's quite a statistic there. It reminds me of how Laurent Kiersmakers, of course, recently became the driver with the most time between wins in Formula in Super League, rather, getting his last win in something like 2007, and then also taking a victory in 2021. And Buchan, of course, didn't quite have that sort of success back in the day, but after returning with E-Team Brit, who knows what he can do nowadays.
I mean, Easy Brit, they are a strong squad as well. I mean, 2006, did you say his last race was in the in an FS1 in Super Cup, was it?
Yeah, he made a single outing. It was San Marino.
I was 2. That's,
South Africa, sorry.
I was 2. That's how long ago that was. Wow. Yeah, that's quite some time. So great to have him back. Yeah, welcome back. That's quite phenomenal. That is. Meanwhile, back to the present. Zabinski overtaking his teammate in favour down into turn 1. So unlike the Nocturne boys, no team orders going on here as they fly into Tamburello again, getting the move done before the DRS zone. That is that was as easy as you like, really. Once again, with that DRS down that long straight, if you're close enough, it can be a very easy overtake to make. But yeah, 2006. That's a long time ago. That's Michael Schumacher. That was his first last season in F1, and that seems like donkeys years ago, doesn't it? Wow.
Oh my goodness! Someone in the YouTube chat, Freak is there, saying he was born in 2008. So he was born as Martin Buchan made his last Super League start. That's quite a statistic there. Meanwhile, the Nocturne driver's getting very close once again down into turn 1. More yellows in sector 2. It has been a very, very crazy race, and it's Alexander Ragosa this time, who has no front wing and I think that's exactly. I think he's had an accident there earlier in this race as well, so he's really not liking that corner, Vilna, the exit of the second apex there. It's a very tricky one. The curbs like to unsettle the car, and it's a very fast section of course anyway. You've got to have your wings set up exactly how you want them. And yeah, it looks like he was unsettled by the first curb, and then that put him onto the second curb, which spun him around. So Alexander Ragosa, I'm afraid, struggling. That puts Mike Bell up into the final points paying position in 15th place. David Yunt has now served his pit lane speeding penalty, so he's been all the way through, and this time at a sensible speed. He came out right behind his teammate Vincent Gutt, who immediately let him back through again. So
very nice,
David comes back into P13 in this race. And he's a little way behind Tom Parker, so I think that's probably where he's going to finish, since we only have 4 laps to go in this race. Another thing, in terms of the reverse grid, how it goes from 6th to 10th, it's been that way as long as I've been involved in GPVWC. I think you may have been getting confused with Formula Challenge or FS2.
Yeah, maybe other series. I don't know. There's too many series. I don't know.
It's okay because in FS2 it's it's randomly generated between 10 and 15. Of course,
yeah,
with it being...
must have been getting the 2 mixed up. I do apologise. There's always
That's okay.
5 and 10. My bad.
That's
yeah,
okay.
It's easily done, I suppose. But yeah, so again, to avoid confusion, that is the final definitive answer. I was wrong. Caitlin is right. For race 2, the sprint race, the random grid number that is picked out of the hat is between positions 6 and 10 on the grid. So at the moment, anyone between Patterson and Zabinski could be on pole position for race 2. Who was it last year that always ended up on pole? Wasn't it Muscat who was always on pole in race 2, just by pure chance? I think it was like something like 3/4 of the races or something.
Yeah.
Like it anyway, we always had Jason Muscat on pole.
Funnily enough, I think our cameraman Szymon Frelik has had a bit of luck with reverse grid draws in the past. Szymon always seems to start P1 in race 2. Muscat's...
There's a few drivers that the draw definitely seemed to prefer them, didn't it?
Yeah, it's complete luck, of course, but if Jason Muscat does end up on pole position again today, I'm going to be a little suspicious. Only joking. Wouldn't it be quite something if the Nova cars were 1-2 on the grid? Owen McGorky, of course, after being put down to 11th in race 1, he'd be starting from 2nd with only his teammates ahead of him. That would be well, it would be the ideal result for him, of course, going into the second race. And I feel like he would be tough to beat in that one. But anyway, that's all speculative, because it could also be Klont, Muscat, Kardash, Ziobinski, any of those drivers. And of course, if the order changes between now and the end of the race, it could be someone else entirely. But still a little bit of time to work that out. 2 more laps to go after this one. Tom Stevens has to navigate before the end of the race. We get another brief yellow in sector 3. Ooh, and a little touch there, and Martin Buchan is the driver who's had the off there, as Jake Dennehan comes together. Look at that with... Who's that? Is that a driver on a different lap? Oh, it's Mike Bell, sorry. So they're fighting over the final points paying position there. And coming together and locking wheels and doing a good job to continue in this race.
Yeah, that was a bit close between the pair of them. Bell maintaining the lead for the time being. Krop there with the fastest lap of the race, 124.418. That's not even that bad. That's actually faster than some of the qualifying times we had, I think. So good going there, Krop. Jason Muscat, meanwhile, looking ahead to Klont, his teammate. These two going to battle it out as they come onto the penultimate lap and onto the front stretch. DRS open for Jason Muscat. And it looks like no team orders at Multiforce GP to the inside. Again, a super easy move. He was already very, very close to the back of his teammate. Moves into the lead. And, well, the move was done about halfway down the straight. And he goes into Tamburello in P7. Dennehan, meanwhile, trying once again on Bell. He will have the DRS this time down the front stretch. Those two running very, very wide out of the final corner all the way to the line of the gravel. Oh, that was some aggressive defending from Mike Bell. You saw a big reaction jerk there from Dennehan, but again, the move done superbly early down the front stretch. And even now, Dennehan, even with the DRS open, having to weave to break the tow behind. So strong is the slipstream for these cars. And Dennehan, well, will take P15. It's not the points positions that he would have wanted, but you know, it's not bad, and it sets up a good start for race 2 as well. As well, Stevens and Krop start the final lap of the race. Very, very close together. Does Krop go for this? Krop's going for the move. No, he's not. He's decided against it, but he got my suspicions up there. So it seems like it's going to be all action stations to the end for the Nocturne, with Stevens leading from Krop, of course, pending a giant disaster. But to be fair to these two, they've been super, super strong all race long. You know, haven't put a foot wrong. You know, apart from the start where Krop fell back initially, you know, Stevens has been fantastic. Krop has been fantastic. You know, and I think, you know, they've driven sensibly. They've driven well. They've driven sensibly.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very rewarding victory for Stevens. Obviously, the first winner ever of Formula Sprint 1 in GPVWC history. This being the first race of the newly rebranded FS1 Championship. And again, a nice little 1-2 to kick off the season as well. I think the Nocturne team, I think they'd be quite happy with this race one.
Absolutely. Now, if you're worried by the performance of Nocturne and thinking that this is going to be a dominant series, I would urge you to keep in mind that Owen McGorgy would have been in contention for this one had he not had that grid penalty. So it's not as clear-cut as it seems, although Nocturne have indeed absolutely dominated this race. They've done everything that they've needed to, and Tom Stevens rounds the final corner now. He's not going to open the DRS, but they're going to go almost side by side across the start-finish line. Tom Stevens wins the first FS1 race of the year. Moritz Krop is second. Frank Hamming and Omari Watson are going to get third and fourth for HGP, and Owen McGorgy and Craig Patterson will claim 5th and 6th for Nova. My goodness, it really is the animals going 2x2, because Muscat and Klont are going to be 7th and 8th for Multiforce. So right down to 8th, they're in team formation. Then you get Damien Kardash, and then after that, my goodness, it's almost all the way down to 10th, because Ziobinski and Faber are together for PZZW. Meanwhile, James Lambert, I'm afraid, will not finish the race. He's crashed out at the top of the hill, meaning that 21 drivers will cross the finish line to finish this race. And the point scorers are Stevens, Krop, Hamming, Watson, McGorgy, Patterson, Muscat, Klont, Kardash, Ziobinski, Faber, Parker, Yunt, Gutt, and Dennehan.
Yep, very, very nice race to kick off the championship there. Of course, don't be alarmed by the results. It'll look bad on paper with the teams going 2x2, as you said, Caitlin. But, you know, I think that's been a really, really nice race. You know, it wasn't overly chaotic. It wasn't overly, oh my goodness me, if this carries on, I'm going to have a heart attack. This is too intense. But it was a fun little race to kick off the season. Some nice action, a good few strategy battles there. We can see the final results. Tom Stevens and Moritz Cropper 1-2 for Nocturne in the first Formula Sprint 1 race in GPV history. Frank Hamming and Amari Watson following up for HGP. Then it's the Nova boys, McGorgy and Craig Patterson, and Muscat and Clont following suite in for Multiforce GP. And then it's Damien Kardash and Matus Zubinski rounding out the top 10 for Gallery 82. And is it PZZW or I don't know. We'll find out. And then it's Adrian Faber in the other car of the one we don't know how to pronounce, followed by Tom Barker, David Junt, and then Vincent Gutt, Jake Danahan for TCS off, and Mike Bell with Martin Buchan for Team Eating Brit. He's come forward quite a bit there. Good stuff from him. And Luke Mitchell with Alexander Rogota and Philip Koenig, P19 and 20. Yeah, Buchan, our returning soldier. Great result from him. And then Perseus Miram was actually the last finisher that we had. So we lost Lambert, Morris, Van der Smissen, Singleton, Erkan, Quint, De Vries, Michalak, and Darius Andre. A fair few casualties from race 1, but I think that was always expected, to be fair, coming into the new season. You do often see quite a few retirements in Formula Sprint 1. It is very much a championship of attrition. And coming into the first round of the new season as well, I think it was expected. But, 21 finishes, that's not bad going. And a nice little 1-2 there from Nocturne as well. I think overall, that's a pretty good race that we've had on our hands there, Caitlin. And, well, it amps the excitement even more for race 2.
Race 2 is going to be even more exciting, so don't go anywhere. We will have a partially reversed grid, adding to the... spicing it up a bit. And of course, it's a shorter race, so less time to make mistakes, more time to fight. And we're going to go to a break now, so don't go anywhere. We're going to be back, and we have another race for you. Hello everyone, welcome back to GPVWC Formula Sprint 1. This is the, we're lining up for the start of race 2. Still at Imola, the San Marino round of the championship, which technically is not within the borders of San Marino. We are in Italy, but we're close enough that it doesn't really matter. Once again, I'm joined by, well, the broadcast director is Szymon Frelik, providing you with the sights and sounds that you're being provided with. And also Russ McIntyre is back after the break as well. Russ, a strong start to the season, especially for the Nocturne drivers, and then I'm going to have to go off 8th and 9th on the grid because Damien Kardash has been put in pole position.
Indeed, position 9 drawn out of the hat. Damien Kardash starting race 2, the first sprint race of the 2022 season from the pole in the Gallery 82 car. We should be getting going on our formation lap in a few moments, and as I say that, the light goes out. Here we go on said formation lap. Now, if you're new to GPVWC, the sprint race, it's much like the first race, except it's a few laps shorter. There's no mandatory pit stop, and usually all hell breaks loose. I kid you not, if you think there was a lot of retirements in the first race. I can guarantee you there should be more in this race. There will be cars flying everywhere. But let's go over the starting grid anyway. If you missed the back end of race 1, it's Damien Kardash on the pole position. He finished P9. And then, well, I didn't see who was in second, unfortunately.
It's okay. Clunt second, Muscat third, Patson fourth. And we're actually seeing the order again. My apologies.
There we go. So Kardash finished in 9th. The graphics have a moment, so he gets the pole in the reverse grid. Then Clunt from Muscat from Patson, Multiforce GP in 2nd and 3rd. Then McGorgy is in 5th. Amari Watson in 6th, Frank Hamming in 7th, and Moritz Kropp in P8. And of course, if you're watching race 1, Tom Stevens taking the victory. He starts from P9 with Matus Zabinski just missing out on that reverse grid in P10. Adrian Faber, meanwhile, his teammate starts in P11. And Tom Parker for PB Racing starts in P12. David Yunt for Valet and Vincent Galt also for Valet. It's an all Valet row. I want to say that's row 7, I think. Yeah, row 7, followed by Jake Denhan there in 15th. 17th is Martin Buchan, our returning old soul. Luke Mitchell is in P18 with Rigota in 19th, and Philip Koenig for the Build Tim team in P20. Purges Miram also for the Build Tim car in 21st, with James Lambert for E-Team Brits in 22nd. And it's the Sanson boys of Isaac Norris and Justin van der Smitten in 23rd and 24th, followed by Kenneth Singleton. Arda Erkam, the driver with presumably brought the entirety of Turkey with him in the chat. Mike Quinn in P27, Great De Vries in P28, and rounding on the grid is Casper Michalak and Darius Andre. And well, we've had our first race of the season. Now it's time for the first sprint race of the season. And oh boy, hold on to your hats, this one's going to get exciting.
Now, if you think that Damien Kardash and Manu Clunt are going to be swallowed up at the start, I'm afraid you're probably mistaken, because these two are very, very quick. And even though the leaders are theoretically quicker, it's one thing to be faster and another thing to actually get through. Kardash and Clunt know what they're doing. This is going to be a tough race. Watch the lights. Look at Kardash pointing, angling his car right over the road there. He's actually aiming at the apex of turn 1. Here are the lights, and when they go up, we will be underway for the second time today. And it's go! So Damien Kardash leads away and covers off Manu Clunt immediately, and that was a really good start. And now Clunt is going to be under pressure from the HGP and Nova cars. Craig Patterson to the outside, to the inside. Look at that! Oh, McGorgy with a massive dive and a great move, and he goes through to 3rd. Kardash leads, followed by Muscat and McGorgy. And meanwhile, our race 1 winner is fighting with his teammate there in the traffic, going around the outside of Amari Watson. Oh, it's not a cleaner start whatsoever. Look at that. Massive problem further back. Singleton's involved, Miram, Koenig, Michalak, Lambert, etc., etc. My goodness, Garrett De Vries returning. He's still got his wings about him, and someone else is off there on the exit. That's one of the PZW cars. Carnage. Zjabinski is now fending off P10 from Parker. Parker getting over the curb. There are the leaders you're looking at, and I think there might be... oh, and Parker does get 10th place. Good move there. Kardash still in P1. Muscat, McGorgy, Clunt, Patson, and even more problems further back as drivers and a spin at the front. So up and around goes Damien Kardash. He's looped it, and he's going to drop all the way down the order. He's in, oh my goodness, well he's disappeared. So Damien Kardash has dropped down into 16th position. Disaster from pole position. Manu Clunt has now dropped 2 places as well. So it's McGorgy leading from Muscat, Patson, Hamming, and Clunt.
Indeed, big shame for Damien Kardash there, looping it round Variante Alta. McGorgy into the lead after getting pole position, starting from 11th in race 1 from a grid penalty. Menno Klont getting swamped there by Patterson and Hamming, and just absolute carnage on lap 1. 4 or 5 cars involved in that pile-up. We've got Koenig and Singleton both out already, and well, a few more drivers going quite a way backwards, I think is the term I'd use. Yeah, not ideal, but it's McGorgy from Muscat up the front, and then Patterson 2.5 seconds back. And Zabinski losing places to Denahan and Rigota there as well. Rigota actually jumping himself and Denahan as well. So, oh, big cluster of cars coming up to the top of the hill. This can't end well, surely. Oh, too wide into the left-hander. How that wasn't an accident, I have no idea. But they're still side by side into the right-hander. Unbelievable stuff here at Imola, lap 2 of the sprint race of the FS1 Championship, of course, round 1 of the season here at Imola. And we've got a big old season in store for you. Do not be afraid. Moving on to Bahrain in 2 weeks' time. Australia, Portugal, Azerbaijan, Monaco, Canada, Britain, Austria, Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Singapore, Japan, Mexico. And then once again, rounding out the season with the Brazilian Grand Prix. But my. What a hectic first few laps there. McGorgy with the fastest lap of the race, a 124.851, of course. Looking very, very racy, as we'd have expected, going from the pole position, hamming to the outside of Patterson. Patterson holding firm on the inside. Great defending there, just a little later on the brakes. You can see moves left, right and centre. Ragoza trying to work his way back up. And oh, that's Mitchell into the wall. Hard into the inside wall. Tamburello, a bit of debris on the inside of the road as well. I'm not sure if he's got steering damage. That was quite a hard impact, but looks like he's okay. Couldn't see the car crabbing down the straight on the run into Villeneuve. But yeah, that's a big hit into the wall. That's not what you want to be doing this early into the race. There are still big points on offer in the race 2. It's not as many points as race 1, but there are still a lot of points. And of course, you want to be scoring early and scoring big if you want to be in the championship contention late in the season.
And Kardash has crashed again.
Oh dear. And
Kardash out of the race now, I'm afraid to say. Incidentally, I looked back at his incident. He was actually touched from behind by Jason Muscat, so there was contact between the leaders on the first lap of the race. We're seeing a replay now of Kardash's latest accident, and you're going to see him getting all sorts of out of shape, and as he tries to rejoin, loses it and into the wall.
Oh, that's a big hit, that is. Wow.
And talking of big hits, on the first lap of the race, the accident was caused because Adrian Faber lost control in front of the pack, and there was no way for anyone else to go. Look at Frank Hamming now to the inside of Craig Patterson. This is for 3rd position, and they swap. So Frank Hamming goes through into 3rd place, and Craig Patterson is down to 4th now. I know Clont not following through, but he's close anyway, and getting closer. So it's McGorgy leading by 2 seconds over Jason Muscat, and there's a further 2 seconds back to Hamming, who has just passed Craig Patterson for a 3rd position in this race. We have, and James Lambert's out now as well, so 4 cars out, I'm afraid to say, and a lot of other cars hampered in the early stages. Another yellow flag in the first sector, and Luke Mitchell, I think, has had an incident. Yep, he is in the wall at Villeneuve, and he is now out of the race as well.
Indeed. So, yeah, another retirement. We're seeing them dropping quite literally like flies. And, there is Luke Mitchell backing into the wall very heavily on the exit of Villeneuve, I think that is. And, yeah, that'll do it, I'm afraid. Going in rear end first, of course, in real life, that would do your gearbox in game, your rear wing and your rear suspension, maybe your engine as well. Ragoza in P11 at the moment after that disappointing early lap. He'll be wanting to push on and get into those top 10 positions. And big wobble actually clips the gravel coming out of the final turn and onto the main straight. And Menno Clont, meanwhile, looking to try and challenge Patterson in front, and he's not got his DRS open. Okay. Menno Clont there, not opening his DRS down the main straight. That's kind of easy positions, mate. Come on, sort yourself out. Denahan, meanwhile, down in P12. Buchan, our returning veteran almost of GPVWC, last raced in Super Cup back in 2006. And he's joining us in what is now the rebranded Super Cup, the Formula Sprint 1 Championship. Currently running P17. He's putting on a good display for the E-Team Brit squad. I believe they're making their GPV debut, actually. Obviously, E-Team Brit, quite a large team. But I think this is the first time that they've graced our virtual tracks here in GPVWC. And of course, as always, if you're watching along on YouTube, thank you for watching along. Do not be afraid to click like and subscribe. It really does mean a lot. A lot of effort goes into organising and broadcasting these races for your entertainment. So we really do appreciate it if you comment, like, subscribe. And of course, you can follow along on social media as well with the hashtag GPVWC, hashtag Formula Sprint World. We are reading your comments. We are taking in what you're saying. You know, any constructive criticism. If you think me and Caitlin are terrible, as McGorgy sets a 124.829 new fastest lap, let us know. We'll probably ignore you because, well, we're not bad, are we? So you can deal with it. But Clont, meanwhile, as I focus back on the action to the outside, this time he is surely going to get past Patterson. Does get past Patterson on the brakes into turn 1. Very easy move further back. Rugotsa trying the same thing on David Young. Oh, slams the door shut in his face. Dennehan off the road there, and he's facing the oncoming traffic. That is not where you want to spin. Dennehan, unfortunately, it's not been a great Thursday night for him. A replay here of what happened. Racing there, I think that's with Mike Bell he's racing with. Just coming into turn 1, was there contact between the two, or did he just get it right? Oh no, there was contact. Bell turned in. I don't think he realised Dennehan was there. Round goes Dennehan. That's a big shame. And well, he's not been having a good night, has he?
I wouldn't get too despondent if I was Jake Dennehan. Jake is extremely good, and although it hasn't been a good start to the season for Jake, I really wouldn't be surprised if he's a big player later on in the season. And I don't think this is... Oh, look at that. Justin van der Smisson's had a big one.
That's a big crash. That's a big
He's
crash.
lost his front and rear, so he's been in on both ends, and he's out of the race as well. You weren't wrong when you said there were going to be cars flying everywhere today, Ross. Let's see a replay. So what's happened to Justin? He's running down the back out of the points into Villeneuve. This is a very popular place to have an accident, and he has... Well, he hits the other wall, so he goes onto the other side of the track to where most people have been destroying their vehicles, but the result is the same. Craig Patterson now is about to have a go at Menno Klont. Well, he got close, although he decided against going for a dive. That may be brave, actually, or it may be wise. Oh, it's David Yunt's having a spin. Yunt going round. So Yunt from 10th place, and that's now Tom Parker's. And luckily manages to loop it around before anyone else comes through slightly wide. So that could have been a bad situation. David Yunt looping it around.
Indeed, round and round he goes. Big shame for David Yunt, another driver who's not had the most ideal of nights, of course, Valley Esports. Unfortunately, seeming to be struggling out there in what is technically their home race. I know that Monza is technically the home race at the Italian Grand Prix, but again, Imola isn't actually in San Marino, even though it's called the San Marino Grand Prix. Well, we call it anyway. It's not the San Marino Grand Prix in Formula 1 anymore. Anyway, back to the action. Hamming leading this train of cars in the battle for third. We've got Klont, Patterson, Watson and Kropp all looking for a piece of the podium pie. And the question is, as we head onto lap 8 shortly, who is going to be in the best position? Now, Formula Sprint, this is where it gets interesting in Formula Sprint, is there's no mandatory pit stop. So you see that these drivers are on the soft tyres. As well, we're about to see a lot of overtakes here. When do their tyres run out? Patterson to the inside of Klont. Hamming has pulled away a little bit over the last lap, maybe seeing a move behind as well. Oh no, we got some congestion behind as well, but Patterson gets past Klont up to 4th. Meanwhile, Zabinski trying to get past Darius Andre. Actually, it may have been the other way around. Apologies, I think Zabinski may have lost the place. He's fallen to P12. David Yunt, meanwhile, trying to recover from his earlier spin. He's on the medium tyres there. No, the hard tyres, apologies. They've changed all the tyres around this year, trying to get used to it. But he's on the hard tyres this year. And now, let me start that again. He's on the hard tyres now. So he'll be looking for a longer run. So he'll be looking feisty at the end of the race, even with that spin. That's something to watch. Morris Kropp as well. Second place in race 1. He's also on the hard tyres. And Stevens. So a lot of the front runners from race 1 sitting on those harder compound tyres. So they'll be worth watching late in the race. If they could conserve those tyres and take them a good way without using them too much, they could be very, very racy come the last 5 laps. So keep your eye on Kropp, on Stevens, on Rugotsa, on David Yunt as well. Menno Klont, meanwhile, maybe he'll be looking to reclaim his P4 with the DRS. Opens it up. You can see the little flap in that rear wing, letting the air through, increasing the straight line speed of the cars as it reduces the drag. It's literally called the drag reduction system. To the inside, into the Tamarello chicane, and the move is done before the corner even comes. And we've been seeing lots of moves like that, Caitlin. It's been a very easy overtake to make, but at least drivers are shuffling backwards and forwards. It creates some sort of racing, I suppose, and we had a fairly entertaining race 1. It's been a fairly entertaining race 2 so far, and there's we're coming up to roughly halfway through soon, and we sit on the edge of our seats to see what happens in the second half of the race.
Yeah, I've been watching a tough fight between Morris, Ziobinski and Andre for 11th, 12th and 13th. Those three are now in completely the opposite order to how they were a lap ago. Andre made a mistake at the chicane and allowed both of the other cars through. Then Morris went through into turn 1 and Ziobinski is still in 12th place, but he's got a different car ahead of him and a different car behind him. Meanwhile, you were talking about the tyre situation. I agree. It's going to be interesting towards the end of the race because it's a long way to go on soft tyres, 21 laps. And while it is doable, the top drivers on hard tyres are actually the Nocturne drivers in 7th and 8th. That's why the Nocturne drivers haven't made their way through as much as you might have expected. They've been keeping up with the soft shod runners ahead of them. And if the hard tyre does end up being the correct one to be on, as Patterson is about to go straight back past Quant again for P4 on the outside, and he goes through, and there's, oh, and look at that, and a big dive from Amari Watson. Great stuff. Watson goes through as well, and now the HGP team have both of their cars in the top 5. Further back, the fight between Maurice Ziobinski and Andre once again almost kicks off into that corner. But yeah, I'm not sure if Watson was actually expecting to get past Clont there. He saw the two cars ahead of him fighting, and then he thought, I've got to go with him. I've got to attack now. There he goes. That was really good stuff, actually, from Amari Watson. Very opportunistic driving. Amari, who made his Super League debut last year, unfortunately retired from that race, but this year, of course, in Formula Sprint 1, proving to be a tough competitor. What was I talking about just now? I'm sure I hadn't finished yet.
Who knows? I mean, we're never really finished in the commentary booth, are we, Caitlin? It's always, we try talking about one thing, something else happens, and then we move on. It's kind of the nature of the job, really.
Oh yeah, tyres.
Tyres, that was the one.
They're the top 2 cars on hard tyres. Look out for them. Yes, that's how it's going. Sorry.
No, it's fine, no worries. Glad you remembered. But yeah, watch them coming into the latter half of the race. Yellow flags out in Sector 3, but they've gone as quickly as they arrived. Apparently David Yunt having problems. Amari Watson now trying on Patterson, and when I say trying, I meant doing, because he's gone past down the outside into the Tamburello chicane. Very, very easy there. Again, lots of DRS moves in this race. And, well, as we are now over halfway, 10 laps to go, these soft tyres, you're surely starting to think they're going to be starting to reach the end now. A lot of drivers have been pushing very, very hard on those softs. It's going to be touch and go with how they're doing at the end. We see the Hamming running off the road. I think that's Hamming anyway, up in front of these guys. Just getting a bit wide, coming off the corner. And no apologies, it's actually a lapped car. But it's, yeah, the soft tyres, they're going to start to run out. They are going to start to fall off the so-called cliff, as referred to it in motorsports, when the grip just drops away so dramatically. So it's going to be interesting to see how they hold on to the end, even though it's a track where a lot of mechanical grip is required. You know, very, very technical track, very physical circuit as well. But it's going to be interesting to see. And when I say all those things about the track, I think it's also the absolute perfect choice for the opening round of the Formula Sprint 1 Championship, as the backmarker decides to get out of the way at the last minute. I believe that is Mike Bell for PB Racing there. 10 laps remaining in this race, lap 12 of 21 of the second race of round 1 of the 2022 Formula Sprint 1 Championship here at GPVWC. It's been an entertaining evening of racing so far. Of course, we've had all of our championships getting kicked off. We've had the Academy Series going around. We've had Formula Sprint 2. We had that on a Tuesday, wasn't it? I think it was Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday.
It was Monday.
Monday. Oh, my apologies. And then, of course, next week you've got the Super Lights and Super League to look forward to. And you'll be joined by myself on Caitlin on the Super League as well. So if you don't like us, well, sucks to be you, because you're stuck with us for the top of the top, the best of the best in GPVWC and R Factor 2 single-seater racing. And well, we did have the privilege of calling the three-way tiebreaker championship finale last season, and well, that went quite well. So apparently we've managed to keep the job. Here we can see Darius Andre to the inside and pushing off there. Ooh, and getting touched around. Andre.
There wasn't a touch, actually. He went around all by himself, and Ziobinski had to go off in avoidance. So spin from Darius Andre, and that's not the only mistake I've got to tell you about, unfortunately. Isaac Morris has also spun out of the race, and that means he will not be scoring any points today. Also not scoring any points is Martin Buchan. He is understandably rusty after his 13 and a bit years off from GPVWC, and he has now crashed out of the race as well, so he comes away from today with 0 points. Anyway, back up in front. Looks like Menno Klont is not quite close enough to get back at Craig Patterson this lap, and that's probably the first lap in a while where we haven't seen a move going into turn one from one of the top contenders. But further back we have one. This is Ada Erkan going past, going past Darius Andre. So Erkan recovering after his DNF in race 1. He's well into the points now, and top 10's a little too far potentially, unless there's even more attrition. But he's right on the back of Mateusz Jabinski, and that's P11 there, which wouldn't be bad after DNFing from race 1.
Yeah, of course. You want to see drivers be doing better, but it's interesting to see as they improve throughout the weekend. Ooh, that's Vincent Gott. Valley Esports, no front wing either. He's had an off coming out of. That's interesting. He spun the inside coming out of Villeneuve. That is an interesting place to have an accident.
It's just like Justin van der Smissen did earlier on. Yeah. He's got away with it a little later because he's still got his rear wing at least. But it looks as if Vincent Gott's going to struggle to get any points out of this one now either. He's making his way back to the pits without his front wing, and will drop even further down the order. We have 20 cars on the lead lap still. We're probably about to get 19 cars on the lead lap after Gott's pit stop. And 22 cars still in the race in total. So one more retirement and we'll have had exactly the same number as in race 1, but with 10 fewer laps. So it does show you that, the second race, even higher attrition than the first of the 2 races. And it's not that these are bad drivers or anything. These are very, very good drivers. It's just that it is insanely difficult to control this powerful, light, flyweight car for such a long time on such a difficult circuit, with curbs, with other cars buzzing around you like flies. It's tricky, and if you don't believe me, you should absolutely try it, which you can do by signing up to the GPVWC Academy series. You can look up how to do that on the website. But even if you do that, these cars, of course, are even faster, even more powerful. Your concentration has to be absolutely peaked. Your heart rate is high, and sometimes the excitement can get a little bit too much, even for some extremely talented drivers, which is why we only have 22 of the 30 cars still in this race.
Indeed, 22. I mean, to be fair, we had 21 left at the end of race 1, so we're actually doing slightly better now than we were then. But as we see, that's one of the Valley cars getting well out of the way. I believe that is, I want to say that's Vincent Gott, and I'll be right in saying that's Vincent Gott getting right off the track to let the faster cars through. Of course, if you're new to motorsport, new to sim racing, in single-seater racing, we have this wonderful thing known as a blue flag, where if you are a slower car and you're getting lapped by a faster car, you are shown a flag. It is blue. That means get out of the way. Simple as. You have to let the faster car through, you get a penalty. It wasn't always like that, but it is nowadays. It's just kind of part and parcel with single-seater racing. So that's why you saw Vincent Gott running well off the road there onto the grass on the main straight, letting those faster cars by to not cause too much trouble. Meanwhile, back to the action, and McGorgy, a 4.5 second lead from Muscat, who's got 2 seconds on Hamming behind. That podium trio looking pretty solid, pretty stable up the front at the moment, but this battle for P4 is far from over. Watson barely in front of Patterson, barely in front of Klott, in front of Stevens, in front of Kropp. It is very, very close in this battle for P4. Menno Klont is there, chasing him down, chasing down Patterson, trying to get the DRS, pulling to the outside surely. Yes, he does. It's important to remember that Patterson also has DRS, so who's going to be later on the brakes? Going to be Patterson to the inside, maintains the position. And, one thing to note, Caitlin, actually, as well, is with McGorgy winning this race, compared to his finishing position in race 1, he's actually even on points with Tom Stevens, even though there's less points on offer for a win in race 2. I mean, it is round 1. Championship is not as important as we see there. That is Stevens trying for a dive up the inside of Klont. So what I've said is maybe going out the window very soon, as it seems like the hard shed runners are finally coming good. But, McGorgy's done a good job this afternoon. Oh, that's a car off to the inside there. That's
Yep, Adrian Faber's had a crash there. In fact, he had a crash much earlier on in the lap. He's been driving around really slowly with without any wings, and his steering's like pointed right over to the left there. He's got quite a long way around, but yeah, that's the struggling car you just saw there. And who's that? Oh, Craig Patton, they're running slightly wide. And Menno Klont is in 5th place. Look at Tom Stevens now up the inside. And, oh, he was very determined to get that one. In fact, he's scared. He's scared Patton off the line. Patton will have the run down the straight, but watch Krop actually. Krop's going to come right into play here. He'll have the DRS, and he'll have the slipstream from both cars. They're going to go almost 3 wide down the straight. Buzzing all over the place. And towards the first braking zone of the lap, Stevens once again takes a look, and they stay in the same order somehow. But yeah, that was a really dramatic fight there. Fantastic stuff. This is about the point in the race, as we're about to see Patterson's incident. This is him running all the way over the curbs, and that's how he lost 5th position to Menno Klont. But yeah, dramatic stuff up in front. And David Yunt now, I'm afraid, is out of the race as well. So yeah, they really are dropping like flies. And if Faber doesn't make it back to the pits, we may only have 20 cars finishing this race.
Yeah, that'd be a big shame. I mean, to be fair, race 2 is always more chaotic than race 1. You always get more retirements. People, you know, the race is short. I was about to say the race is less long. The race is shorter than race 1. You know, and at this stage as well, you're tired. You know, if you're living in Eastern Europe, for example, you know, it's getting into the late hours of the night as well. It's Thursday. You've probably got work or school the day after. So, you know, you kind of just want to get it done. So you're pushing, you're not focusing, you overdrive the car and then bang, you're in a wall. Bang, you've been caught in an incident. It's over just like that.
Right,
so it is easy to run. Yep,
second place. Frank Hamming to the inside of Jason Muscat. This is for P2, and he gets it. So Frank Hamming in the HGP Motorsport car is now up into a higher spot on the podium. Jason Muscat has to settle for P3 for the time being. If you're wondering about the sporadic yellow flags you're seeing, Adrian Faber is still attempting to make it back to the pit, still driving very slowly by the side of the road, and that's why the yellow flags keep
I've got to admire the dedication of Faber to try and get back, to be fair.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've been told to park the car by now, but he's
car
still
is
banging wheels! Banging wheels, Zabinski!
Oh.
And Andre off the road! And Andre actually clashing with his teammate Denahan as he comes back on as well. So Andre had a half spin, caught it, comes back on and actually touches with Denahan, his teammate. Wow! Don't see that every day. That's unlucky. Let's go on board with Darius Andre. The TCS off in the 56 machine. So braking, banging wheels, just an early turn in there from Zabinski. Goes off the road, half spin, catches it. And no, there's no actual contact with his teammate, but Denahan has to take some real avoiding action there to not crash in to Darius Andre. Kudos there for avoiding his teammate and causing a big team upset by taking them both out of the race. I mean, it would have been no fault of his own, and neither the fault of Darius Andre. I feel like he was rather a passenger at that incident. While Hamming there, a 124.612, new fastest lap of the race. So Hamming maybe deciding to turn the wick up late on, maybe trying to extend the gap from Muscat, maybe try and cut into McGorgy. It's a bit late. Wow, look at that. Stevens all over the back of Patterson. Patterson defending for his life in that soft shed Nova. At this phase, the hard tyres are so much quicker, but Patterson is holding firm.
Yeah, it's the point in the race where you'd expect this to happen, but the trouble is, it's too late for Stevens and Krop. It would have worked if it had been, you know, a solo race with no one else on track. I think the hard tyres would theoretically be faster in that instance. But you've got to remember, you've also got to overtake cars on track, and Stevens and Krop have not managed to do that, and that's why they're still stuck down in 7th and 8th position, despite obviously being the fastest cars on track. We've got more yellows in sector 1. I'll keep an eye out for what might be causing that. Is Adrian Faber coming out of the pits now and having just as many incidents trying to rejoin the road as he did trying to get back to the pits? It looks as if the suspension and steering has not been mended, and he should very much retire from the race now, I'm afraid to say. Anyway, so coming into the last 2 laps now, McGorgy leading, followed by Hamming. They're about to come up to the yellow flag zone where Faber is still trying. My goodness, this is real dedication from Adrian Faber. I don't think he's even been within the white lines in about 10 minutes now. But anyway, so McGorgy, Hamming, 5 seconds between the two of them. Jason Muscat still third, then Watson, Clunt, Patson, Stevens. And that's the main fight that I've just listed off there, Patson and Stevens in the late stages. Because Stevens has the best car on track at this point in time with the freshest tyres, and Patson will be struggling.
Indeed. Lap 20 to 21, penultimate lap here. The soft shed runners are going to be clinging on for their dear lives.
Muscat! Oh, crash! Big crash!
That is
Big
huge!
Crash! Muscat and Clunt. So Muscat spun it, and it's a teammate clash. So the Multiforce cars have come together, and Patson's not got a rear wing. Patson is missing his rear wing.
Stevens didn't have a front wing either. I don't know if he's going to have to box or he's going to try risk it back. Did the other Nocturne car go? Oh no, that is massive accident. And just coming around a blind corner as well. Losing the rear, comes round, just doesn't hold the brakes, spins back onto the circuit. Oh no! He tries reversing now. Oh no! That is, oh my goodness me. So it looks like the other THR car, Nocturne car, apologies, still stuck in last season, got through fine. Oh, Jason Muscat must be, I cannot help but feel for Jason Muscat right now. That must be heartbreaking. Through no fault of his own, he's taken himself and his team out, just trying to reverse back on. Wow, look at Morris Kropp there, just flying his way through. He will now be leading the championship if he finish as we stand. But
Stevens has stayed out. He's not got a front wing.
Stayed out. He's going to try and bring it home with no front wing. Fair play. But it will be Kropp leading the championship if we stay as we are. McGorgy, despite a great performance, isn't going to quite take the lead in the championship as Stevens starts to lose places. What a dramatic way, what a heartbreaking way to end the night of great racing here. But you've got to give it to McGorgy. Overall tonight, I feel like he's been the real star.
McGorgy would have done even better without that penalty after qualifying, but he's made up for it. He's going to win the second race of the day. Fantastic stuff from Owen McGorgy. He weaves, he's excited, and he's won. Owen McGorgy wins the race. Frank Hamming will be second, and it's going to be HGP Motorsport on the podium, second and third. And they may be team of the day, actually, because they were third and fourth in race one as well. Moritz Kropp will be fourth place. Fifth will be Alexander Ragosa. Can Stevens? No, he can't. I was just about to say, can he hold on to sixth place? It's going to be Tom Parker sixth. Stevens will hold on to seventh, though, and that's a good performance from Tom Steve. No, he's coming into the pits. Does he not know he hasn't finished the race yet? I don't think Stevens knows he hasn't finished yet. And that means that Mike Quint's going to pass him for the line. No, he's not. He has passed the line. So Stevens does still make seventh. Mike Quint finishes 8th, then it's Darius Andre, Jake Denahan, Mateusz Szybinski, Ada Erkan, Kasper Michalak. Jason Muscat will still finish P14 after absolutely being in the wars in both races. And I personally think he made quite a big error there, I'm afraid to say, but I'll leave that up to the stewards to decide. Gerrit de Vries will be P15, and that will be the final points-paying position of this race. And not making it to the end will be Menno Clunt, because he flew over the barrier in that accident. It was an absolutely humongous one. And that means only 19 cars will see the checkered flag.
Well, talk about a dramatic conclusion to the Thursday night's racing. Oh my goodness me. Got to hand it to McGorgy there with a great win on board with the man himself as he comes down. Oh, that's a bit tight on the... Is that the last lap?
That was the first lap. That was lap one.
Oh, that was lap one, wasn't it? The steering wheel decided to glitch out on our replay, but that was how we took the lead on lap one. And, well, the Irishman never looked back from that. A great victory for McGorgy with Hamming in P2 and Watson in P3. And I do apologise, not Irish, even though it says on last year's timing screen that he is Irish. So I've been going off that. I do apologise. I've been lied to by the timing screen. But McGorgy with a great victory there. What else is there to say? A great victory of him, but boy, oh boy, what a dramatic way to end the evening. Final results, it is McGorgy winning the sprint race in race 2 of round 1. Hamming is in P2 with Watson rounding out the podium. A great race for the HGP boys. Moritz Krop manages to sneak through that instant to P4, go to P5, Parker P6. Stevens just managed to hold on in P7, Mike Quint in P8, with Darius Andre and Jake Denhan being promoted to P9 and 10 after that almost incident between the pair of them. That was a bit close for close, wasn't it? Zabinski's in 11th with Erkan in P12, Kasper Michalak in P13. Muscat manages to bring it home in P14 with Great De Vries in 15th, Perseus Miram in 16th, Cray Patton in 17th, Vincent Gutt in 18th, Menno Clont did DNF with Bell classified behind him in P20, that should say. I don't know what it says 19th. He is classified, though, as having finished the race. And then a whole host of DNFs. We've got David Young, Adrian Faber, Isaac Morris, Martin Buchan, Justin van der Smissen, Luke Mitchell, Damien Kardash, James Lambert, Philip Koenig, and Kenneth Singleton all retiring from this race. I said race 2 was going to be chaotic, didn't I? Well, there you go. Talk about chaos. That was pretty insane, if you ask me.
The chaos benefited one man, and we can talk to him now. Owen McGorgy, the seas parted in front of you, but you held position and won the race. How does that feel?
It feels absolutely brilliant, especially to be back after, well, quite a long time out since Monza last year. It's brilliant just to get a win, even with the grid penalty. I got pole. I had the pace. I definitely had the pace. You just couldn't overtake when there's more than 2 cars in a train, really. But I managed to get past quite quickly, I guess. And well, it does feel good to make up that many positions in one race. And then for the second race, as you said, the seas parted in front of me, and I went for the gap. And managed to pull a second and then keep pulling the gap each lap over and over again, and just managing the tyres.
Race 1 must have been exciting as well, coming through from 11th to finish 5th. How did you manage that?
I'll tell you what, it wasn't too easy. It was fun for most of it, but in the second stint, because I did get a little bit of damage from an earlier little tap with these cars are like paper. They just break at the scene of any little touch. But yeah, I had a bit of understeer, and it kind of costed me there trying to catch Amari. But I feel like I kept on the pace with the Nocturne boys at the front. So yeah, it was a positive out of something that could have been much better if I didn't get that grid penalty. But yeah, it felt good.
Fantastic stuff. And are you expecting to see the full season? No more unexpected dropouts?
Well, considering I wasn't expecting to drop out last season. That was on my own part with some of the incidents that I had, which I've learnt from, and hopefully they don't happen again. But yeah, the plan is to do the whole season, and well, the main plan is to win.
Great stuff. Well, you started off in good form today because you've already won. So congratulations, Owen, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Russ, would you like to speak to Owen's team manager?
I mean, if you really want me to, we've got Josh Downward in here. How you doing, Josh?
Hello, I'm doing well, thanks.
Well, that was a pretty good night for the Nova boys, got to be saying. Of course, Owen securing pole, unfortunately didn't quite get the pole position in the end because of that carrying over 10-place group penalty from last season, but rounding out the night with a win. Yeah, that's, pretty good going for the first round of the season.
Yeah, it was great stuff from Owen. Well, through practice, I think he was very confident this round. Really enjoying and stuff. So yeah, the penalty. Unfortunately, we didn't actually know we had it until the practice session.
Really?
Yeah, we just didn't really think about it. I mean, it makes sense. He got banned from last season, so we should have known. But it wasn't on the website. But yeah, so that was a bit of a shame. I think race 1 could have been very interesting between him and the THRs up front, but Nocturne, sorry. But yeah, I mean, great stuff from Owen, and then Craig as well. Especially in race 2, there the defense against the Nocturnes was amazing. Just really unfortunate about the end there. So But yeah,
and,
great stuff from both guys. So really happy.
yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to really talk about that, do we? I mean, Craig was doing a phenomenal job on those, absolutely eating up softs. Surely you must be feeling a little bit heartbroken.
Yeah, definitely. But he showed that he had the pace to comfortably be with the top guys as well this year. So yeah, we'll carry that forward to the next rounds and should be in for a good fight with all the other guys, quick guys there.
And of course, looking forward, Bahrain in 2 weeks' time. How's the feeling in the camp?
Well, see, we'll have to see when we get there. Craig last year didn't really enjoy Bahrain, but also last year that was his first round. He missed the first one, so we'll see what he thinks. And then Owen, I think he's just obviously, especially after a win there, he's on a bit of a high at the moment. So yeah, I'm sure he'll be looking forward to it.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you very much for joining us, Josh, and of course, congratulations for tonight. A great result for you.
Thank you.
No worries
Great
there. Was
stuff.
Josh Downward for the team boss over at Nova.
So from Nova on to Nocturne, we have Moritz Kropp here. Moritz, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Good stuff. So second place in race 1, fourth place in race 2. That's a good haul of points there.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy with that.
I'm sure you are. So in race 1, you had a lot of pace. Were you expecting? Did you talk to your teammate before the race about what would happen if you found yourself running 1-2? There seems to be some team orders there.
Yeah, actually, we just want to get a stable position in the championship, try to get a big point lead, and then we can work from there. But I mean, if we start fighting in the first round, there's just no point doing that, because if we're gonna crash, we're gonna end up on 0 points, and that's just not what we want. We can do later on in the season if we can have a good lead, but not now. So yeah, there were some team orders.
That does make a lot of sense. Would you have would it have been the same if you were the other way around? If you'd been ahead of Tom?
Yeah, surely, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just
that
this
does make a lot of sense.
this teamwork in this team is just incredible. I'm just generally very proud to be part of that. It's been a lot of fun practicing for this, and also with Tom, I'm having a good time. It's going
I can
great.
hear it in your voice. That's great stuff. You sound so happy.
Yeah.
Race 2 as well. That must have been a really exciting one. Do you regret taking the hard tires, or do you think you would have ended up about the same place anyway?
No, yeah, I do. Yeah, we just couldn't. I we thought that there would be a small advantage at the end, so we can get past all of these guys easily, but it actually wasn't, because we weren't prepared for this amount of grip. So we just went on the medium and didn't really think about it. And then, the softs never dropped off as much as we'd expect. And we just weren't able to make passes in the DRS train, which was unfortunate, but yeah, I don't know. Just I'm very gutted for Tom. That was not, I don't know, it was not his fault.
Yeah, he got absolutely demolished at the end. Did you see what happened?
Not really. I just saw wings flying around, and then suddenly I saw Craig without wings, and Tom screaming, "I've got no front wing!" And I don't know. I saw Menno spinning, but I didn't see much more.
Flipping over the barrier, you mean? He went crazy. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, fantastic job. Second place in race 1. You had a lot of pace, and that is quite a point haul you've got there.
Very much.
one last thing actually. I met your parents at GPVWC Day, and they seemed very happy, very supportive. Are they watching today?
Yeah, they were. It was
Fantastic.
last
Shout
minute.
out to Moritz's parents.
Yeah, I just returned for the qualifying session. I had a driving lesson, and yeah, they went crazy fast to get me. So yeah. By the way, just one question: am I leading the championship? Because I heard some rumors about it.
Yeah, you are. As a result of the chaos, it's not by much, of course. It is literally round 1, but
Yeah.
as a result of the chaos of the last lap there, or whatever lap it was, yeah, you are in fact leading the championship. So well done.
Let's go.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Moritz, and
Thank you very much.
congrats.
Thanks a lot to the team as well, and yeah. hopefully speak to you in the next round then.
Thank you very much. That was so wholesome, Russ. Moritz is so happy right now. That's great to hear.
Yeah,
Would you like
great
to
to-
speak to his teammate Tom Stevens, who won race 1?
Yeah, why not? Go on then. Tom, can you hear us?
No, yes.
Yes, well, good to have you along. Of course, kicking off the first ever race of Formula Sprint 1 Championship with a win. That must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good to see that our hard work had paid off, and do it with a win was definitely very good. A 1-2 especially, yeah.
Yeah, not bad going. I mean, you Nocturne boys were looking pretty phenomenal out there. It must be said, of course, it was kind of clear you weren't really racing each other, but overall it was a great performance. But you were displaying great pace all weekend. I mean, obviously you qualified in second, got lucky to inherit the pole. Do you still think you could have won if you'd have gone off of grid race 2?
Well, it's impossible to tell, but we'll see next race.
I suppose we will. Heading to Bahrain, of course, 2 weeks' time. Well, I think the thing I have to ask, I know you've won a race and all, but what went through your mind as you come over the crest and you see a Multiforce GP car flying through the air as you're heading towards it at a few hundred kilometers an hour?
Yeah, well, it's quite unlucky, but it's nothing I could have avoided. So, well, it just is what it is, and we'll just move on and keep improving for the next rounds. And I've got to say, great job done by all the THR boys, Toby, Tom, and David, and everyone else. It wouldn't be possible without them, and Moritz as well. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Tom. Of course, a great way to start off your championship and the Formula Sprint 1 series as well. And yeah, congratulations. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
There you go. Tom Stevens, race 1 winner, first ever winner in the Formula Sprint 1 championship.
It's funny how Tom, of course, has won that race, but because race 2 hasn't gone so well for him, he sounds so much less happy than Moritz. It's a bit of a shame, really, because he deserves to feel very proud of himself after that performance. Anyway, a great day of racing for GPVWC. Really enjoyed that, and it is fantastic to be back. We are going to be, yes, we're going to be back next week as well with GPVWC Super Lights. That's on the Monday, and then Super League is on the. Sorry, I think I've got it wrong,
Thursday.
haven't I? It's Tuesday. Is it Tuesday and
Yeah,
Thursday?
Tuesday and Thursday. The
Tuesday and
Super Lights on
Thursday.
the Tuesday, Super League's on the Thursday.
Well, that means I got confused earlier on, and FS2 was indeed on a Tuesday as well. My apologies. But anyway,
Well,
so we're
right
going to be
about
back. Yeah, we're going to be back next year. Next week.
I
And
hope we'll be back next year.
if you're confused about the times of that, you can look it up on the site or whatever. But it's the same time as it started today. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you then. Thank you, and good night.